Chapter 1260. As for the other spirit grasses and spirit medicines Yang Kai collected in Liu Yang's desert, he kept them for himself, such as the emerald silk grass, purple fine jade fruit, golden sunfruit, and so on. These herbs could be used in alchemy, so naturally, he wouldn't give them to Yang Inflammation. As for the red candle fruit, red candle stalk, 9-branch jade crystal tree, golden sunfruit tree, and 10,000-year incense, Yang Kai also kept them for himself. After obtaining these materials, Yang Inflammation naturally left in high spirits. With her talent and so many good things, she could naturally go all out. Before leaving, she also gave Yang Kai a palm-sized token. The seal script on the token flowed, looking very mysterious. With this token, Yang Kai could freely enter and exit his cave mansion and open the barriers around it. Once these barriers were opened, no one on Dragon Cave Mountain except for Yang Kai could enter. Even Yang Inflammation couldn't enter unless they forcibly broke the spirit array. Regarding this point, Yang Kai was very satisfied. Yang had obviously taken his safety into consideration, which was why she had used this method to create a place where no one could intrude. Yang Kai wasn't planning to live in one of the newly built lofts outside, so this cave mansion was very much to his liking. Yang Kai didn't know if it was because he had carved his own cave mansion in High Heaven Pavilion's coiling dragon stream a long time ago, but he had a special fondness for this kind of cave mansion. He felt that living here was very peaceful and was most suitable for him to meditate and cultivate. On top of that, Yang had carefully arranged this cave mansion. This place had the most spirit arrays and was the most heavily guarded place on Dragon Cave Mountain. The world energy aura here was so rich that when Yang Kai first returned, he couldn't detect anything inside this cave mansion even when he used his divine sense to investigate. After Yang Inflammation left, Yang Kai sat cross-legged in place and fell into a daze for a while. He had faintly noticed that it wasn't just Yang Inflammation, but also Wu Yi, Yu Feng, Chang Qi, Haoan, and the several dozen Haiku family disciples. They had already treated this place as a place that they could rely on. It could even be said that they treated this place as their own home. Therefore, no matter which one of them it was, they were extremely attentive to the construction of this place. This was what Yang Kai was happy to see. After pondering for a while, he took out his alchemy furnace, emerald silk grass and some other medicinal ingredients. He refined a few furnaces of origin condensing pills. Yang Kai didn't know if it was because Liu Yang's trip to the desert this time had allowed him to grow a lot, but this time, refining the origin condensing pill was much smoother than the last time. More than half of them had formed pill veins. These origin condensing pills were naturally for Chang Qi and Haoan. Both of them had been stuck at the Third Order Saint King Realm bottleneck for so many years, so they should only need one origin condensing pill to break through to the origin returning realm. However, after the pills were refined, Yang Kai didn't rush to send them out and instead began to arrange them in his cave mansion. In one of the stone rooms, Yang Kai spent a lot of saint crystals and even used his myriad drug liquid to create an extremely rich world energy aura. The cave mansion's world energy aura was already quite good, so with the addition of the saint crystals and myriad drug liquid, the richness of the world energy immediately rose to a whole new level. Inside this stone room, Yang Kai opened up a small medicine garden and carefully took out the red candle stalk and placed it next to the pool formed by the diluted myriad drug liquid. He believed that with so much world energy and spirit water, the red candle stalk shouldn't wither, not to mention, its vitality was already extremely tenacious. Next, Yang Kai took out the small piece of red candle fruit. Although he knew that this small piece of red candle fruit could not be restored after being cut, Yang Kai still placed it at the top of the red candle stalk, hoping that the roots of the red candle fruit would be able to maintain or even enhance its medicinal efficacies. Yang Kai couldn't use the red candle fruit now, nor could he refine it into a pill, but perhaps he would need it in the future. After doing this, Yang Kai used the token in his hand to open all the barriers in this stone room. As soon as the light curtain flashed, a ripple spread out and everything in the stone room suddenly disappeared. Not only was it impossible to see the pool of diluted myriad drug liquid, the red candle stalk, and the red candle fruit with the naked eye, even when using one's divine sense, there was no trace of them. Except for the abnormal world energy aura, there was nothing else suspicious about this place. Yang Kai nodded with satisfaction, and after completely sealing off this stone room, he went to the next stone room. In the second stone room, Yang Kai took out the 10,000-year incense and the incense burner he obtained from the 6th layer of Liu Yang sand field and placed them inside. In an instant, the entire stone room was filled with a faint and clear fragrance. As soon as this fragrance entered his nose, Yang Kai suddenly felt his mind become tranquil, as if all his worries and unhappiness had disappeared. Even his knowledge sea had become calm and tranquil. The effects of the 10,000-year incense were well deserved. Meditating under this fragrance for a long time would be of great help to anyone. Using the token in his hand, Yang Kai also completely sealed off the second stone room. The fragrance of the 10,000-year incense could now only drift inside the cave mansion, but Yang Kai could think of a way to let this fragrance drift outside. This way, the cultivator living on Dragon Cave Mountain would be able to benefit from it. Secretly keeping this matter in mind, Yang Kai went to the third stone room. A moment later, Yang Kai placed the 9-branch jade crystal tree in the third stone room. This way, as long as someone entered retreat inside the cave mansion, they could use the 9-branch jade crystal tree to spy on the heavenly way and martial Dao, allowing them to break through bottlenecks. However, Chang-Chi and Howen both had the assistance of origin condensing pills and the 10,000-year incense, so they probably wouldn't need to use the 9-branch jade crystal tree. After finishing this, Yang Kai walked to the side and looked at a strange stone full of holes. This strange stone was the profound insect stone that Yang Kai had spent a lot of saint crystals to buy at the last auction. After buying it, Yang Kai had placed his soul-devouring insects inside it. Yang Yang had said that profound insect stones were the most suitable for growing exotic insects. Before Yang Kai went to Liu Yang's desert, he had told Yang Yang and the others not to touch this profound insect stone. Now, it was lying quietly in a corner just like before. However, under the investigation of Yang Kai's divine sense, he found that there were thousands of tiny soul-devouring insects, invisible to the naked eye, sleeping quietly inside this profound insect stone. The interior of the profound insect stone seemed to be empty. The soul-devouring insects were still growing and evolving, so they couldn't be used for the time being. Only when the profound insect stone completely disappeared would they be able to fly out. Moreover, the 6-colored soul-warming lotus in Yang Kai's knowledge sea was also evolving, so the soul-devouring insects had no place to settle down, so Yang Kai wasn't in a hurry to let them out. Yang Kai had great expectations for the evolving soul-devouring insects, wondering what kind of changes they would undergo after they finished evolving. After pondering for a while, Yang Kai put away the profound insect stone and placed it in the stone room where the 9-branch jade crystal tree was. Only then did Yang Kai walk out of the cave mansion and call Chang-Chi and Howen in, giving each of them an origin condensing pill and telling them to choose an empty stone room to enter retreat. Yang Kai believed that it wouldn't be long before Dragon Cave Mountain would have its first 2 origin returning realm masters. Although they would only be first-order origin realm masters, in the end, there would still be origin returning realm masters here. In the future, when Yang Kai wasn't here, they would be able to cooperate with Dragon Cave Mountain's many amazing spirit arrays to protect this place. Over the next few days, Yang Kai was constantly busy. No one knew what he was busy with, but soon, everyone was surprised to find that a golden sun fruit tree had appeared somewhere on Dragon Cave Mountain. Although the fruits on this tree had disappeared, this tree was still a spirit fruit tree, so in addition to being used to decorate the scenery of Dragon Cave Mountain, it also gave everyone a sense of anticipation. When it came to transplanting the golden sun fruit tree, Yang Kai was severely reprimanded by Yang Yang. After listening to her ramble on and on, Yang Kai realized that he had been too naive before. The golden sun fruit tree's requirements for its environment were too harsh. If Yang Kai hadn't possessed a heaven-defying treasure like the Black Book space, it would have been impossible to bring it out of the Liu Yang desert and would likely have died inside his space ring. Even if it was replanted here, the chances of the golden sun fruit tree surviving was less than 30%. Yang Yang had spent a great deal of effort to arrange a spirit array around it to gather world energy for it to use, but even so, no one could guarantee whether the golden sun fruit tree would survive or not. However, the bloodsword grass seed had undergone a change that shocked both Yang Kai and Yang Yang. Originally, after Yang Yang took away the bloodsword grass seed, She had simply found a random place to plant it. Because she hadn't provided it with any flesh, she hadn't expected the bloodsword grass seed to sprout and grow at this moment. She had only intended to use it as a last resort. If anyone dared to attack Dragon Cave Mountain, as long as there were casualties near the bloodsword grass seed, it would be able to absorb the energy from these corpses and break out of the ground, catching the enemy off guard. On a whim, Yang Kai dripped a drop of golden blood onto the spot where the bloodsword grass seed had been planted. As a result, in the blink of an eye, the bloodsword grass seed began to sprout and grow rapidly, only stopping after reaching a height of 10 meters or so. However, this wasn't the end though. From the nearby soil, more bloodsword grasses suddenly emerged one after another. Although they weren't as lush as the first one, they still reached a height of about 2 meters. In less than half an hour, with the location where the bloodsword grass seed had been planted as its center, the surrounding 1,000-meter radius had been filled with sharp blades of grass, causing Yang Yang's beautiful face to go pale and she couldn't help screaming. Moreover, these bloodsword grasses were different from the ones Yang Kai had seen before. They were not crimson in color but instead each one exuded a faint golden light, making them quite eye-catching. Such a turn of events not only stunned Yang Yang, but also stunned Yang Kai on the spot. He hadn't expected that a single drop of his golden blood would cause such a big change to the bloodsword grass. The only reason he had dripped a drop of his golden blood into the bloodsword grass was because he wanted to see its effects. As a result, he had almost caused a casualty to one of the nearby cultivators. Fortunately, Yang Kai had come to the rescue in time and saved the Haiku family cultivator from being cut up by the bloodsword grasses. Chapter 1261. However, strangely enough, perhaps because of his golden blood, these bloodsword grasses did not show any hostility towards Yang Kai. Even when Yang Kai passed through them, they did not react in the slightest. However, except for Yang Kai, any living thing that entered these bloodsword grasses would be cut into pieces like a mad demon. The sharp blades of light golden grass exuded a chilling light that caused anyone who entered to shudder. After this incident, Yang Yang was both surprised and overjoyed. He immediately began arranging things around the bloodsword grasses, preparing to turn this place into a restricted area and even use these bloodsword grasses to create a large-scale trap. Even if an origin-returning realm master broke into this bloodsword grasses, even if they didn't die, they would at least lose a layer of skin. 3 days after Yang Kai's return, Shadow Moon Hall's Chen Tong personally brought Wei Guchang and Dong Xiena to Dragon Cave Mountain. After confirming that Yang Kai had really returned safely, the three of them felt relieved. Chen Tong also learned from Wei Guchang that Yang Kai had once saved his and Dong Xiena's lives in Liuyang Desert. Without even mentioning his original intention of befriending Yang Kai, Chen Tong's assistance alone was enough to make Chen Tong deeply grateful. Wei Guchang and Dong Xiena were both Shadow Moon Hall's most talented disciples, so if the two of them were to fall in Liuyang Desert, the loss would be immeasurable. None of them asked Yang Kai why he had only appeared so long after Liuyang Desert closed, but all of them vaguely guessed that Yang Kai must have encountered some other opportunity. As a result, Chen Tong became even more optimistic about Yang Kai and treated him as if he were a family elder. Now, Dragon Cave Mountain and Shadow Moon Hall were cooperating closely. Yang Yang and the others continued to purchase a large number of materials from Shadow Moon Hall, allowing the Shadow Moon Hall to make a lot of money. For various reasons, Chen Tong had already regarded Dragon Cave Mountain as a partner and ally. After a long chat, Yang Kai learned about the gains and losses of the major forces after the opening of the Liuyang Desert. The loss was not small. There were more than 10,000 cultivators who entered the Liuyang Sandyland, but less than 70% of them could return safely. A total of 30% to 40% of the elite disciples of various forces had lost their lives. It could be said to be disastrous. Although this kind of loss made every force feel sad, the harvest brought back by the surviving disciples was enough to make up for the losses. Almost everyone had more or less gained something, especially the sect's disciples who had brought out the red candle fruit. All of them were rewarded handsomely by their respective sects. And the appearance of the red candle fruit. Similarly, it set off a wave of heat across Shadowed Star. Several alchemy grandmasters from Medicine Pill sect frequently went to the various great forces, trying to purchase this red candle fruit at a high price, but to no avail. In the end, they put forward a request for them to refine pills. However, no one felt comfortable handing over this heaven-defying spirit fruit to another great force, not even Medicine Pill Sect, so after half a year, the alchemy grandmasters from Medicine Pill Sect could only return angrily. This was probably the first time that the great forces on Shadowed Star had refused to give face to Medicine Pill Sect. This matter had caused a lot of turmoil half a year ago. Several traitors from Shadow Moon Hall had even appeared and tried to steal the red candle fruit, but as a result, their whereabouts were exposed and they were all eliminated on the spot. The situation of the other sects was roughly the same, but after half a year, the storm caused by the red candle fruit gradually subsided. However, no one knew what to do with the red candle fruit. After talking about this, Yang Kai took the opportunity to ask Qian Tong a lot of questions about the cultivation of the Saint King realm. Qian Tong didn't hold back and immediately shared his cultivation experiences. Yang Kai, Wei Guchang, Dong Xiena, and the others listened attentively and all of them gained a lot. Half a day later, Qian Tong and the others bid farewell and left. Before leaving, Wei Guchang and Dong Xiena told Yang Kai that after they returned, they would enter retreat to break through to the origin returning realm. In Liu Yang's desert, both of them had made some progress, so now was the best time to break through to the origin returning realm. Yang Kai knew that if they hadn't been waiting for news from him, they would have entered retreat long ago. It was precisely because they couldn't determine whether he was dead or alive that they had delayed until now and missed the best opportunity to break through. Yang Kai was well aware of this, but he didn't point it out. Before leaving, Dong Xiena suddenly approached Yang Kai mysteriously and whispered, "Brother Yang, elder sister Dai Yuan has sent me many messages over the past 6 months asking about your situation, but unfortunately, you never showed up, so I couldn't tell her the exact news. Now that you've returned safely, I believe elder sister Dai Yuan will feel much more at ease." Dai Yuan. Yang Kai froze as an ugly face appeared in front of him, causing his expression to become extremely strange. Why was she so concerned about him? Although they hadn't known each other for a long time, Yang Kai felt that with Dai Yuan's personality, it was impossible for her to care about him so much for no reason. Moreover, when they parted ways in the 4th layer, Dai Yuan seemed to have said something that was quite intriguing. She said that she would pay him a visit to thank him in the future, so it seemed that she wasn't just saying it casually. Just as Yang Kai was thinking about this, Wei Guchang chuckled meaningfully, obviously misunderstanding something and thinking that something had happened between Yang Kai and Dai Yuan in Liu Yang's desert. Yang Kai didn't bother to explain. Not to mention that there really was nothing between him and Dai Yuan. Even if Dai Yuan was a beautiful woman, Yang Kai wouldn't be tempted. He had seen many beautiful women, and since entering Liu Yang's territory, he had always been thinking about the other 2 beauties in his heart, so how could he be in the mood to flirt with other women? Dong Xiena suddenly bit her lip and whispered, "Actually, elder sister Dai Yuan isn't what you think she is." After saying this, Dong Xiena quickly caught up with Wei Guchang and left with him. Yang Kai was left standing in place, completely confused. He had no idea what Dong Xiena was trying to say. After a moment of confusion, Yang Kai shook his head and returned to his stone room. After spending a month refining all the herbs he could refine into pills, he immediately called Yang Yang and Wu Yi over and told them that he was going into retreat for a while and that if there was nothing important, they shouldn't disturb him. As for Dragon Cave Mountain, they could handle it on their own. As for the pills he refined, they were naturally given to them to handle. There was a huge number of these pills, and most of them were used to increase one's cultivation. With the help of these pills, everyone's strength would improve rapidly. Yang Yang and Wu Yi naturally nodded. Immediately after, Yang Kai entered his cave mansion and began his retreat. There were too many things he needed to do. He wanted to see if Liu Yang's flying fire could enhance the power of his conflagrated knowledge sea, refine the dragon bone and dragon bead, comprehend the demon bloodthread secret technique, and consolidate his newly promoted second-order Saint King realm cultivation. All of these things took time and couldn't be accomplished in a day or 2. However, in order to refine the dragon bone and dragon bead, Yang Kai first had to refine the artifact refining furnace. Yang Yang was right, sharpening a knife would not delay chopping wood. As long as he completely refined the Origin King grade artifact refining furnace, he could save a lot of time refining the dragon bone and dragon bead. Moreover, the artifact refining furnace had given birth to an artifact spirit and could be used as an offensive artifact. After carefully sorting out the things he needed to do, Yang Kai began to get busy. The first thing he did was to refine the artifact refining furnace. Although he had subdued an artifact spirit in the Earthlung fire pond, subduing an artifact spirit and refining an artifact refining furnace were two different things. However, subduing an artifact spirit would be of great help to him in refining the artifact refining furnace, allowing him to refine it more quickly and effectively. Taking out the artifact refining furnace and placing it in front of him, Yang Kai closed his eyes and pushed his Saint Qi, transforming it into demonic flames that wrapped around the artifact refining furnace in front of him and allowed his aura to penetrate into it. Time passed by little, and in the blink of an eye, half a year had passed since Yang Kai began cultivating the flowing time Great Emperor. Since Yang Kai entered the cave mansion, he had not come out, so no one knew what he was doing inside. Even Chang Qi and Haoen, who had successfully broken through to the origin returning realm inside the cave mansion, had not seen Yang Kai in person. The two of them had taken origin condensing pills and, with the help of the 10,000-year incense and 9-branch jade crystal tree in the stone room, broke through to the origin returning realm without any suspense and emerged from the stone room in less than half a month. After breaking through to the origin returning realm, the Shadow Moon Hall actually sent over some information about origin returning realm cultivation, causing Chang Qi and Haoen to be overjoyed. Both of them were from small families and had never been able to obtain such precious information before, so Qian Tong gave them some face for Yang Kai's sake. Naturally, the two of them were extremely grateful. Immediately, the two of them entered their own lofts and entered retreat to comprehension, which was something only an origin returning realm cultivator could comprehend. For half a year, everything on Dragon Cave Mountain was in order. Wu Yi was in charge of managing the outside and cooperating with the Shadow Moon Hall, while Yang Yang was responsible for arranging the various spirit arrays. Dragon Cave Mountain's defensive capabilities had risen to a whole new level, and the cultivator who originally belonged to the Haiku family had also immersed themselves in cultivation diligently. If it weren't for Yang Yang needing to use artifact refining and arranging spirit arrays to comprehend the knowledge in his mind, with the current situation of Dragon Cave Mountain, there would be no need for him to arrange anything at all. During this half a year, Yang Kai had also thoroughly consolidated his cultivation. After refining the profound yin sunflower water, his cultivation had risen to the peak of the second-order Saint King realm. Now that he had consolidated his cultivation, as long as the right time was right and he received some help, he would be able to break through to the third-order Saint King realm. The artifact refining furnace had also been completely refined into his body. After that, the Firebird artifact spirit could even freely enter and exit Yang Kai's body, no longer having to stand on Yang Kai's shoulder like before. This little thing and the stone mongoose seemed to have some natural disagreements and would often fight whenever they encountered each other. This was the first time Yang Kai realized that the stone mongoose's combat strength could not be underestimated. Its innate battle armor allowed it to withstand the artifact spirit's fire spirit's attacks. Although it looked simple and clumsy, once it began fighting, its speed was incredibly fast. If it weren't for the artifact spirit's ability to fly, the stone mongoose would definitely not have suffered a loss. Even so, every time they fought, the stone mongoose and the artifact spirit would end up in a tie, neither able to do anything to the other. Chapter 1262. Over the course of half a year, the two artifact spirits fought more than a dozen times, ending in a draw almost every time. Yang Kai naturally didn't bother to take care of them and never intervened in their battles. In the end, the two little creatures even began to appreciate each other and would sometimes gather together to discuss something mysteriously. During this half a year, in addition to consolidating his second-order Saint King cultivation and refining the artifact refining furnace, Yang Kai had also refined the dragon bone and dragon bead slightly. Now, both the dragon bone and dragon bead had been placed into the artifact refining furnace while the artifact refining furnace had been taken into Yang Kai's body. As a result, even if Yang Kai didn't deliberately refine them, The artifact spirit could use the Saint Chi in Yang Kai's body to stimulate the artifact refining furnace while using its own pure fire attribute energy to continuously refine the dragon bone and dragon bead. However, these two things were truly worthy of being materials from a true dragon. The artifact spirit had been refining them for 2 months but hadn't seen much change. The only difference was that they were slightly contaminated with Yang Kai's aura, but they couldn't be used by the artifact spirit. It seemed that it would take at least 3 to 5 years to completely refine them, unless Yang Kai specifically took the time to stimulate the power of the artifact refining furnace to speed up the process. Yang Kai wasn't in a hurry though and took this opportunity to study the Demon Blood Thread secret art given to him by Demon Blood Temple disciple Deng Ning. Originally, Yang Kai had only wanted this secret technique to use as an excuse to deal with Yi Yang Rong while also ensuring that Deng Ning wouldn't betray him. However, after returning to Dragon Cave Mountain for a month, Yang Kai discovered that this Demon Blood Thread secret technique was extremely profound and was very suitable for him to cultivate. This came as a great surprise to Yang Kai. Demon Blood Temple was an extremely evil force that had many bad blood relationships with many of the great forces on Shadowed Star. On top of that, there would be a small internal strife every 5 years and a major one every 10 years. The reason why it had not been completely destroyed was mostly because of this Demon Blood Thread secret technique. The foreign elders and protectors of Demon Blood Temple had all cultivated this secret technique and were able to use it in battle, making it extremely difficult to defend against. As such, most people didn't bother to find trouble with them. As long as Demon Blood Temple didn't do anything that would incur the wrath of the heavens, there was no need to worry about its destruction. If one wanted to cultivate this secret art, one needed to use one's own blood essence as a foundation. Every cultivator's blood essence was extremely precious, and once used, it would cause severe damage to one's Yuan Qi. It could be said that using a single drop of golden blood would cause a cultivator to recuperate for several months to several years. However, in Demon Blood Temple, there was another secret art that complemented the Demon Blood Thread secret art and allowed its disciples to use their blood essence as a foundation to cultivate this Demon Blood Thread secret art without suffering any serious damage. Once one successfully cultivated this secret art and used it against an enemy, their combat power would soar. Because it was refined from one's own blood essence, it was much easier to use than any other artifact. The Demon Blood Thread was also known as an artifact that wasn't an artifact. Blood essence was also precious to Yang Kai and he didn't dare use it casually, but he had an endless supply of golden blood. On top of that, golden blood contained an unimaginable amount of vitality, making it the best foundation for cultivating the Demon Blood Thread secret art. When Yang Kai discovered this, he was overjoyed, but before that, he had been considering the pros and cons of cultivating the Demon Blood Thread secret art. It wasn't until some time ago that he finally decided to begin cultivating it. Because the more blood essence one used to cultivate this secret art, the more demon blood threads one could cultivate, and the more powerful it would be. This secret art was simply tailor-made for Yang Kai. How could he miss out on such an opportunity? Currently, when Yang Kai fought, he mostly relied on the 9 heavens divine skills as well as his own comprehension of Saint Chi, so he lacked some flexibility. If he could cultivate this Demon Blood Thread secret art, he would be able to make up for this shortcoming. If Yang Kai cultivated this secret art, he would have another huge advantage, and that was that the Demon Blood Threads he cultivated would be more powerful than those of Demon Blood Temple's disciples because the foundation of this secret art was blood essence. The more powerful one's blood essence was, the more terrifying the Demon Blood Threads would be. During this half-year retreat, Yang Kai had spent most of his time cultivating the Demon Blood Thread secret art. Now, he was showing some signs of minor accomplishment. Inside the cave mansion, Yang Kai's thoughts flashed as an imperceptible golden light appeared at the tip of his finger. This golden light was like a silk thread, several dozen meters long, and under the control of Yang Kai's divine sense, it moved back and forth nimbly, giving off a whooshing sound as if it was capable of cutting through space itself, as if he was holding an invisible golden whip in his hand. After testing the power of this Demon Blood Thread secret art, Yang Kai was quite satisfied. After all, this was something he had obtained by consuming a drop of golden blood. Moreover, he hadn't even fully cultivated it, yet it already possessed such power. If he fully cultivated it, its power would definitely increase significantly. This was just a single demon blood thread. If he cultivated several dozen of them, Yang Kai could hardly imagine how much trouble they would bring to his enemies. The senior who created the demon blood thread secret art was truly a heaven-sent genius, actually thinking of using his own blood essence to cultivate this artifact that wasn't really an artifact. However, even he could not have anticipated that there would be someone like Yang Kai in this world who could use countless drops of golden blood. Given enough time, Yang Kai would definitely be able to carry forward the demon blood thread secret art he created. However, now, this thing could no longer be called a demon blood thread. It was more appropriate to call it a golden blood thread. Yang Kai grinned, took back the golden blood thread into his body, and continued to cultivate. During this period, Yang Kai also consumed space spirit crystals to absorb energy from them and enhance his own space force. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months passed and Yang Kai still showed no signs of coming out of seclusion. However, there was no need for him to appear on Dragon Cave Mountain, so everything was fine. On this day, while cultivating his golden blood threads, Yang Kai's expression suddenly changed and he quickly opened his eyes, a look of pleasant surprise flashing across his face. Immediately closing his eyes again, he sent his consciousness into the black book space, his soul avatar manifesting. After seeing the scene in front of him, the words Yang Kai was about to say were suddenly swallowed back into his stomach and instead stared blankly at a giant tree in front of him. This giant tree was the divine tree that Yang Kai had taken into the black book space many years ago. Last time, after swallowing 2 drops of Yang Kai's golden blood, it had fallen into a deep sleep to evolve. Now, 2 to 3 years later, it had awakened from this state. It was precisely because he had perceived its message that Yang Kai had manifested his soul avatar into the black book space. However, the appearance of the divine tree now was a bit strange. Yang Kai remembered that before its evolution, it was a towering tree with lush foliage. Each leaf and branch contained a rich yang attribute energy. But now, after its evolution, it had shrunk several times, only reaching a height of 7 or 8 meters. However, at this moment, its leaves and branches looked a bit different, as if they were made of pure gold, giving off a dazzling and eye-catching golden glow. Moreover, between these branches and leaves, there were some green fruits about the size of longans. If these fruits were to mature, they would be great supplements for someone like Yang Kai, but they had only just begun to bear fruit. What surprised Yang Kai was not just these changes to the divine tree, but also the fact that a face had appeared at the center of its trunk. It was a very strange face. It had eyes, a nose, and a mouth, but no eyebrows. Furthermore, because the face was too big, it was somewhat distorted. It looked like the face of an extremely old man. On both sides of the tree trunk, there were 2 forks that looked like arms. The branches on the palms were separated and looked like fingers. However, the 2 arms and palms of the divine tree were extremely large, and at a glance, it was obvious they were extraordinarily powerful. The roots of the divine tree had also transformed into many tentacles that supported its huge body, as if it had grown countless legs out of thin air. When Yang Kai entered, the divine tree seemed to be adapting to its changes, its tentacles moving as it slowly walked through the black book space. When it sensed Kai Yang's arrival, it immediately raised its 2 large eyes and looked over. It even seemed to smile at Kai Yang for a moment, before standing still. "You!" Yang Kai stared at it in amazement, not knowing what to say for a while. "Don't worry." What surprised Yang Kai even more was that the divine tree actually spoke in human language, but its voice was very deep and hoarse, as if this was the first time it had spoken like this and was not used to it. Before, the divine tree had only communicated with Yang Kai through divine sense, so this was the first time Yang Kai had heard it speak. Yang Kai's eyes bulged as a look of disbelief appeared on his face. After a long pause, the divine tree continued, "Although I don't quite understand why I've become like this after evolving, I can feel that this is a good thing. It seems your golden blood has been of great help to me. I am no longer the same as before." Hearing this, Yang Kai felt relieved and asked with concern, "Is there anything wrong?" "No, there's nothing wrong at all, I feel wonderful." The divine tree's speech gradually became clearer, as if after speaking a few words, it had grasped the trick of communicating with others in this way. As it spoke, it began to slowly walk through the black book space, if there's anything wrong with this place, it's that I feel this place is no longer suitable for me to stay. It's too depressing and not conducive to my growth." Yang Kai was startled and immediately understood what was going on. Before the divine tree had evolved, it could only be regarded as a world spirit treasure that had gained sentience, so there was no problem with it being placed inside the black book space. But now, it had become a strange creature, so staying inside the black book space was indeed a bit inappropriate. It might not be a problem for a short time, but if it stayed here for a long time, it would be unable to accept the world principles from the outside world, causing it to wither and die. If such a thing really happened, Yang Kai would not be able to absolve himself from the blame. Chapter 1263. Considering all this, Yang Kai said apologetically, "I've wronged you these past few years. When I brought you out of that mysterious small world, I promised you that one day I would find a place for you to settle down, but after all these years, I've been running around and haven't been able to find a place to settle down." Hearing this, the divine tree waved its two palms and waved them off. "I know, you don't need to worry about it." Yang Kai nodded gently before suddenly grinning, "But now I finally have a place to settle down. If you want, you can come out for a while. When I leave here in the future, I'll take you with me." "Of course, that's up to you." The divine tree stopped and a look of joy appeared on its subtle face as it asked, "Can we go out now?" It seemed that because it had been placed in the black book space for so long, it missed the sunlight outside. Yang Kai nodded firmly. "Then let's go out. When you leave here, I'll go with you." After finishing his discussion, Yang Kai immediately walked out of the cave mansion. The outside was quiet as the several dozen Haiku family disciples seemed to be in a state of cultivation. Even Chang-Chi and Howen were nowhere to be seen. Only the few cultivators responsible for monitoring Dragon Cave Mountain's movements were still active. Seeing Yang Kai come out of seclusion, these people's expressions became solemn and they quickly walked over to greet him. Although they had followed Wu Yi out of the Haiku family, they all knew who was in charge of this place. "Where's Yang Inflammation?" Yang Kai looked around but couldn't find any trace of Yang Inflammation. Even after using his divine sense, Yang Kai couldn't find Yang Inflammation's aura. Wu Yi was also not here. Yang Inflammation and Young Lady went to Black Sea City together. One of the cultivators who seemed to be very smart quickly replied. "Black Sea City? Which great force is that? Why did they go there?" Yang Kai was stunned. Black Sea City is under the jurisdiction of Clear Sky Sect. They went there to participate in Treasure Trove Pavilion's auction. "Another auction?" Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. Seeing his puzzled look, the cultivator hurriedly explained. After listening to his explanation, Yang Kai understood. It seemed to be because Yang Kai had taken out a lot of good things at the auction last time. Yang Pei of Treasure Trove Pavilion remembered this, so before the auction this time, he specially asked Qian Tong to send over an invitation. Dragon Cave Mountain just happened to be lacking Saint crystals to purchase materials, so Yang Yang brought a few artifacts he had refined to the auction. Prepare to raise some funds. After learning about this, Kai Yang furrowed his brow. The speed at which Yang Inflammation was spending Saint crystals was simply too fast. The several million Saint crystals and materials Yang Kai had brought back last time must have been used up by her. Yang Kai wasn't frowning because of her extravagant spending. No matter how much Saint crystals and materials Yang Yang consumed, he was still arranging a protective barrier for Dragon Cave Mountain. What Yang Kai cared about was that auctioning things to raise Saint crystals was not a long-term solution. Yang Inflammation could take out the artifacts he refined to auction once or twice to allow the funds to flow, but if this continued, something would definitely happen. What's more, the pills he refined couldn't be auctioned for a long time. After all, Dragon Cave Mountain was not under the protection of any great force. Although Shadow Moon Hall had a good relationship with Dragon Cave Mountain, that was only because Qian Tong was in charge. There was no guarantee that someone from Shadow Moon Hall would keep an eye on Dragon Cave Mountain. If too many high-grade artifacts and pills were to flow out from here, it would definitely attract the attention of those with ill intentions. Not to mention others, Yang Kai estimated that Xie Hongwen's father would not relax his monitoring of Dragon Cave Mountain. Xie Hongwen had died in the Liu Yang sandfield, so although Xie Hongwen's father did not know who killed his son, he would definitely not give up. Once he found an excuse, he might come here to cause trouble. How many days have they been gone? Yang Kai asked again. 3 days, they should be back soon. Does young Master Yang need to find them? If so, we can make a trip. No need, Yang Kai waved his hand, you can go about your own business. Yes. Several people nodded and were about to disperse when Yang Kai suddenly said, right, when they come back, tell them not to auction any more artifacts. After giving these instructions, Yang Kai flew up into the sky and began flying freely around Dragon Cave Mountain. He had the token given to him by Yang Inflammation, which could not only open the barrier around the cave mansion but also open and close all the barriers and spirit arrays around Dragon Cave Mountain, so with this token in hand, Dragon Cave Mountain's barriers and spirit arrays had no effect on Yang Kai. Yang Kai saw all kinds of amazing spirit arrays arranged by Yang Inflammation. The Mirage Stone was also placed in the array core of an illusion array. If it weren't for the token given to him by Yang Inflammation, Yang Kai would not have been able to escape after breaking in. There was also the territory where the Bloodsword Grass was located. It was also wrapped in a bewildering array, making it impossible for anyone to see what was inside, but once an outsider broke in, they would be frantically attacked by the Bloodsword Grass. There was also a plain and unremarkable area, but Yang Kai found that the huge fire crystal stone was protected by layers of spirit arrays. Halos of light flowed around it, and a huge spirit array was engraved on the ground. Although Yang Kai did not know what kind of spirit arrays were arranged in this territory, Yang Kai estimated that it would not be an easy place to break through. There were also a variety of other spirit arrays and spirit arrays. Even though Yang Kai was the owner of Dragon Cave Mountain, he was still shocked by these layers of protection and hidden dangers. Yang Inflammation wanted to turn this place into an impenetrable fortress. However, Yang Kai knew that she was using these arrangements to unlock the seal on his sea of knowledge, so even if it was a bit extravagant and wasteful, it was not a problem. As long as Yang Inflammation mastered more and more things, the spirit arrays and spirit arrays she arranged in the future would become stronger and stronger. Yang Kai flew around Dragon Cave Mountain for a while before returning to an open space a few dozen meters away from the loft. There was no trace of any kind of arrangement here, so it was obviously just an open space. After landing, Yang Kai used his divine sense to connect with the black book space and communicated with the divine tree for a while before releasing his divine sense. In the next moment, the spiritual energy in his knowledge sea was greatly reduced and a golden light flashed in front of Yang Kai as the 70-meter-tall divine tree suddenly appeared. Yang Kai was secretly startled and a look of surprise appeared on his face. He found that he had underestimated the amount of spiritual energy it would take to release the divine tree. When he had taken the divine tree into the black book space, his spiritual energy had been completely exhausted and his knowledge sea had completely dried up. If it weren't for the 5-colored soul-warming lotus, his soul would have been damaged. Even so, it had taken him a long time to recover. Yang Kai's current strength was far from what it used to be, so he thought that releasing the divine tree would be a simple matter. How could he have imagined that the spiritual energy in his knowledge sea would be reduced by more than half in an instant? However, after thinking about it for a moment, Yang Kai smiled. While he had grown over the years, how could the divine tree not grow as well? The amount of spiritual energy required to release it would naturally be much greater than before, so this was not unexpected. As soon as the divine tree appeared, the human face on the trunk showed a joyful expression, its 2 eyes slowly turning as it looked around. After feeling the rich world energy aura here, a look of comfort appeared on its face as it boomed, "Good, good, good, the conditions here are simply too good." Yang Kai knew that this was the first time the divine tree had come into contact with the world energy in the star territory, which was why it was so happy. Compared to the mysterious small world it had lived in before, the difference in world energy here was like heaven and earth. There was simply no comparison. "I'm glad you like it." Yang Kai chuckled, "I won't put you in a specific place, you can walk wherever you want, but I have to tell you in advance that there are many barriers and spirit arrays set up here. If you rush in, it may be a bit troublesome, so pay more attention when you walk around. Don't be careless and get trapped by these spirit arrays. I can feel the traces of these spirit arrays, "Don't worry, I won't rush in recklessly." The divine tree readily agreed. Soon after, the tentacle-like branches under its roots wriggled, causing the ground to churn. In the blink of an eye, the divine tree had actually taken root on the spot. A sound was emitted from its mouth, and its eyes were half closed in enjoyment. It appeared to be lazy. Yang Kai did not disturb it and simply waited quietly, letting it enjoy the joy of seeing the light of day again. After a while, Yang Kai suddenly remembered something and said, "Right, 2 drops of my golden blood can help you evolve. What if you swallow some more?" The divine tree opened its eyes and showed a look of longing, but soon said, "Your golden blood should also be extremely precious. Although it will be of great help to my growth, I won't be able to evolve any further in the near future. Swallowing it will only make me stronger, so there's no need to rush. When you have more golden blood in the future, you can let me swallow it." Yang Kai grinned and said, "Although it's not much, giving you a drop for now won't be a problem." Saying so, Yang Kai directly forced out a drop of golden blood and flicked it towards the divine tree. The divine tree opened its mouth, swallowed it directly, and let out another roar, its big mouth wriggling as if it was still tasting the golden blood. After a while, the divine tree opened its eyes and said, "Good, I need to adapt for a few days, you can go about your business." "Good," Yang Kai nodded, and after exchanging a few more words with it, he left. Calling over the Haiku family cultivator, Yang Kai told them to take good care of the divine tree. When Yang Yang and Wu Yi returned, Yang Kai told them about the divine tree's existence. Presumably, they would take good care of it. After doing all this, Yang Kai entered secluded retreat again. Yang Kai didn't know if it was because his luck was unstoppable, but a month after the divine tree's evolution, the profound insect stone that Yang Kai had placed in his stone room began to move. All the soul-devouring insects had awakened and the huge profound insect stone had been consumed. After awakening, the soul-devouring insects seemed to have been fully nourished and had grown greatly. It could be described as a double blessing. Chapter 1264. Inside the cave mansion, Yang Kai sat cross-legged on the spot, his face cloudy and his eyes seemingly empty and lifeless. His aura, however, was tumbling around his body, stirring up a violent storm with astonishing momentum. Not far away, from a hole in the ground, the stone mongoose poked its small head out to look at him, a look of surprise and doubt appearing on its charmingly naive face, seemingly unable to understand what was happening to Yang Kai. The artifact spirit had long since drilled into Yang Kai's body and disappeared. After seeing Yang Kai's eyes, the stone mongoose suddenly seemed to be frightened and shrank back into the hole, scrambling on all fours and fleeing several dozen meters in the blink of an eye. At this moment, if someone were to stand in front of Yang Kai and look into his eyes, they would discover that there was a faint 7-colored light flowing in the depths of his eyes. If one looked more carefully, they would discover that this 7-colored light was actually refracted from a lotus bud, as if 2 7-colored flower buds had sprouted in the depths of his eyes. Yang Kai still sat in place, time passing by little, and the 7-colored light emitted from his empty eyes seemed to grow stronger and stronger, more and more intense. Gradually, above Yang Kai's head, the phantom of a lotus bud also appeared. This lotus was shrouded in 7-colored light and looked extremely beautiful. As it rotated, a shocking wave of spiritual energy suddenly spread out in all directions. As Yang Kai's spiritual energy spread out, the phantom began to unfurl bit by bit and petals of different colors slowly spread outwards, as if a shy woman was slowly taking off her clothes to reveal her alluring body. The entire process was extremely slow, but Yang Kai himself was completely unaware of it, his soul avatar immersed in his knowledge sea. He was immersed in the profound mysteries of the soul-warming lotus before it bloomed. After an unknown amount of time, when the 7-colored lotus had completely bloomed, the lotus had become incomparably huge, and its shadow had almost filled the entire cave residence. At this moment, the lotus phantom suddenly collapsed, turning into specks of fluorescent light that fluttered in the air like fireflies. Immediately after, under the guidance of some kind of force, these specks of light rushed towards Yang Kai and drilled into his body before disappearing. Yang Kai's body shook and his empty eyes instantly regained clarity, his expression extremely strange. He sat there motionlessly, deep in thought. Since the soul-devouring insects had completed their evolution half a month ago, Yang Kai had tested the power of the evolved soul-devouring insects. After being greatly satisfied, the soul-warming lotus actually completed its evolution and finally transformed into its final 7-colored form. What Yang Kai did not expect was that the evolution of the soul-warming lotus would allow him to comprehend a miraculous soul skill. Although the soul-warming lotus was a precious treasure of heaven and earth that could nourish the soul, according to the records Yang Kai had read, it did not allow a cultivator to comprehend a soul skill. Yang Kai did not have time to think about this at the time and immediately immersed himself in comprehending the soul skill. Now that the soul-warming lotus had completed its evolution, Yang Kai had thoroughly comprehended the soul skill. Only then did he have time to think about the reason. Since it was not the soul-warming lotus's work, then it was very likely that it was the colorless crystal inside the pool of soul-cleansing divine water. Yang Kai had accidentally obtained the colorless crystal, but after the soul-warming lotus swallowed it, it began its evolution. Now that the colorless crystal had disappeared, the soul-warming lotus had successfully transformed into its 7-colored form. Yang Kai reckoned that the soul skill he had comprehended this time was very likely related to the colorless crystal. Perhaps the crystal contained some profound mysteries that allowed him to comprehend this divine technique by chance. Although he had not tested it, Yang Kai knew that this soul skill was extraordinary. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was his trump card. During this period of time, one good thing after another had happened. First, the divine tree had awakened from its slumber, then the soul-devouring insects had completed their evolution, and now even the soul-warming lotus had turned into its 7-colored form. It seemed that good things had all happened to Yang Kai. A few days ago, he was still worried about how to deal with the evolved soul-devouring insects, but now this problem was easily solved. Considering all this, Yang Kai waved his hand to the side and caught a gray, misty object in his hand. This misty object was twisting and changing, making it look extremely strange. Although this mist was not very eye-catching, if one looked carefully, they would be able to see that this gray mist was actually a cloud of tiny insects that were almost invisible to the naked eye. The soul-devouring insects were originally invisible to the naked eye, but after their evolution, they had gathered together to form this gray mist. The lethality of each soul-devouring insect had greatly increased. Yang Kai estimated that they could now easily kill an ordinary Saint King realm cultivator. Even if an origin-returning realm cultivator was infected, they would not be able to expel it in a short time. Yang Kai wasn't afraid of them at all. Releasing his divine sense, he wrapped up this grey fog and pulled it into his knowledge sea. These soul-devouring insects also made a beeline for the island formed by the 7-colored soul-warming lotus, quickly settling down there. After such a long period of seclusion, Yang Kai had done everything he could. Refining the artifact refining furnace, refining the dragon bone and dragon bead, refining the Liu Yang flying fire, enhancing the power of his conflagrated knowledge sea, comprehending the demon blood thread secret technique, and so on, Yang Kai could not use the dragon bone and dragon bead for the time being, so he could only wait until they became useful to him. As for the golden blood thread secret technique he had transformed from Demon Blood Temple's demon blood thread secret technique, Yang Kai had only cultivated a single one. Although he had not yet used it against an enemy, Yang Kai knew that its power was extraordinary. This kind of artifact refined using one's own golden blood was far more useful than any other weapon. Of the 8 Liu Yang flying fires, Yang Kai had used 6 of them. As he had guessed, the Liu Yang flying fires could allow a cultivator to develop a variant divine sense and could indeed enhance the power of his conflagrated knowledge sea. However, after integrating the 5th Liu Yang flying fire, the enhancement effect was not so obvious, so Yang Kai had kept 2 of them. Perhaps they would be of some use to him in the future. After more than a year of retreat, although Yang Kai's cultivation had not changed much, his own combat effectiveness had risen to a whole new level. As for the golden blood thread and the newly comprehended soul skill, he could only wait for an opportunity to test their power in the future. It was time for Yang Kai to come out of seclusion. On the path of cultivation, blindly cultivating behind closed doors was not an option. Although those who cultivated diligently increased their cultivation rapidly, their combat effectiveness did not match their realm. Yang Kai had been fighting his way up to this point since he began cultivating, so he was naturally familiar with this truth. Moreover, now he had no choice but to come out of seclusion because someone had come to Dragon Cave Mountain a month ago and was waiting for him. However, the evolution of the 7-colored soul-warming lotus was just around the corner and Yang Kai needed to comprehend the new soul skill, so he had not been able to leave. Thinking of this person, Yang Kai frowned secretly, wondering why this other party was looking for him. With their friendship, it was strange for her to be so concerned about him. Thinking so, Yang Kai walked out of his cave mansion. A moment later, Yang Kai appeared outside and released his divine sense unscrupulously, quickly locating Yang Inflammation, Wu Yi, and the others. After sending them a message, Yang Kai went straight to a loft in front of him. A moment later, while Yang Kai was sitting inside the loft, tasting the spirit tea Yang Inflammation and the others had collected from somewhere, 2 beautiful figures flashed through the door. Naturally, it was the black-robed Yang Inflammation and the green-robed Wu Yi. Both women smiled happily, as if something good had happened, and after seeing Yang Kai, they immediately trotted over. "You've finally come out of seclusion." Yang Inflammation looked Yang Kai up and down and found that he did not show any signs of becoming stronger, a somewhat strange look on her face. What happened that made you so happy?" Yang Kai took another sip of tea and asked. Wu Yi smiled and replied, "It's all because our Dragon Cave Mountain is becoming more and more famous. Many cultivator without the protection of a sect or family want to join. In the past, there weren't many people here, but over the past few months, a dozen or so people have come here every day to inquire, with the most being 30 a day, some of them even origin returning realm masters. Elder sister Yang Inflammation and I were discussing whether we should establish a small sect." "A small sect?" Yang Kai glared at her angrily. "Aren't you thinking too simply? We don't have any masters here, so what kind of sect can we establish? Moreover, the reason we can stay here safely is because of Qian Tong's care. If one day Qian Tong loses power or falls in a battle, do you think Shadow Moon Hall will let us grow under its nose?" Hearing what Yang Kai said, the smile on Wu Yi's face suddenly disappeared and she hesitated for a moment before saying, "That can't be, right? Elder Qian seems to have a lot of power in Shadow Moon Hall, second only to the Temple Master. Anything is possible, especially for these great forces. Although they usually have no problems, once something happens internally, there will be great turmoil. Even those who seem impossible to fall may encounter some kind of mishap. Moreover, although Qian Tong has been good to us, I don't want to always rely on his prestige and shelter us under his wings, otherwise, we'll always feel inferior. Without a third-order origin returning realm master here, there's no need to think about establishing a small sect." Wu Yi frowned and thought about it carefully before nodding. "What you said makes sense, I was thinking too simply. Yang Kai had the idea of establishing a sect because he wanted to pave the way for the people from Tongshen realm, but now was definitely not the time. The current idea must have been put forward by Wu Yi. Yang Kai only cared about artifact refining and arranging spirit arrays, so he didn't care about such things. However, Wu Yi's haiku family wasn't very big, so naturally, she didn't think too much about it, thinking that with Qian Tong's protection, Dragon Cave Mountain would be safe all year round. "What about those who came? Did they all refuse?" Yang Kai asked worriedly. "Naturally, they refused. You were in retreat so we didn't dare make any decisions," Wu Yi nodded. "That's good." Yang Kai rubbed his chin before suddenly raising his head and asking, "Did Dai Yuan from Colored Glass Sect say why she wanted to see me?" Chapter 1265. Hearing Yang Kai's question, Wu Yi pursed her lips and smiled ambiguously. "I don't know, she hasn't had much contact with anyone since she came here. It seems she doesn't like to communicate with others. I've gone to see her a few times, but I've never been able to say anything to her. However, every time she asks about you, just like Wei Guchang, she had also misunderstood him." Yang Kai was too lazy to explain and instead wore a sad expression as he said, "Forget it, I'll go see her. If there's nothing important, she shouldn't have come here." With that said, he walked straight out. He had wanted to inquire about some information from Wu Yi and Yang Yang so he could be prepared, but he hadn't expected that even though they had been here for an entire month, she wouldn't reveal the slightest bit of her purpose for coming here. Yang Kai secretly felt a headache coming on. Dai Yuan didn't seem like the kind of person who would come here for no reason. Since she had come here, she definitely had something to ask of him. If this was really just a chance encounter, Yang Kai could simply refuse, but this woman's relationship with Wei Guchang and Dong Xiena wasn't shallow, and she had also spent some time with him in the Liuyang desert, so if he refused too bluntly, it wouldn't look good on him. Yang Kai could only ask her what she wanted from him before deciding what to do next. A moment later, Yang Kai arrived in front of another exquisite loft 1,000 meters away. He had used his divine sense to investigate this place in advance, so he naturally knew that Dai Yuan lived in this loft. At this moment, Dai Yuan's aura was stable and she seemed to be meditating. Yang Kai could only call out loudly, "Lady Dai Yuan, Yang Kai is here." The stable aura fluctuated for a moment before Dai Yuan's pleasantly surprised voice called out from inside the loft, "Junior brother Yang, please come in." Dai Yuan is currently in the middle of circulating her secret art, so it is inconvenient for her to greet you immediately. Please wait a moment, I will come down after finishing my cultivation. Yang Kai gently nodded before striding inside. The lofts here were divided into 2 floors. When Wu Yi and the others built them, they had considered that the people who lived here would need to receive guests, so the first floor was generally used to entertain guests while the second floor was where the owner of the loft would meditate and cultivate. Yang Kai entered the first floor of the attic and found a chair to sit down. After all, this was his territory. He really calculated it. Dai Yuan was the guest here, so there was no need for him to be polite. After waiting quietly for a while, the sound of footsteps came from the stairs and Dai Yuan walked down in a light blue palace dress. There was a smile on his face. That palace dress outlined her perfect figure incisively and vividly. Curvy front and curvy back. Her waist was slender and graceful. Yang Kai looked at her, and a trace of pity flashed through his eyes. This was because if this woman was not a beauty, she would definitely be a stunner. Unfortunately, she was born with a flaw that greatly reduced her charm. Although this strange light flashed across Yang Kai's eyes, it was still noticed by Dai Yuan. This woman was quite intelligent, so how could she not understand what Yang Kai was feeling regretful about? Her heart was as clear as a mirror, but her face remained expressionless. After apologizing, she sat down on the chair next to Yang Kai. With a wave of her jade-white hand, the ring on her finger flashed and a plate of exquisite spirit fruits appeared on the table. This is a purple mist fruit I picked from Colored Glass Sect's Purple Mist Mountain. On Shadowed Star, no other place besides my Colored Glass Sect has this kind of spirit fruit. Although it is not as good as the spirit fruits and spirit medicines in Liu Yang's desert, it is of great help to any cultivator in purifying their Saint Qi. Junior brother Yang, if you don't mind, you should try it, Dai Yuan introduced with a smile, an expectant look on her face. Yang Kai grinned, since Sister Dai Yuan is so considerate, this Yang won't be polite. Although he was secretly grumbling in his heart, he knew that this woman definitely had some business with him, so he picked up one of the small purple fruits and examined it carefully. Although this was the first time Yang Kai had heard of this purple mist fruit, just by looking at its purple aura and the fragrance it gave off, it was obvious that it was not something ordinary people could eat in Colored Glass Sect. Since Dai Yuan had brought it here specifically, he naturally had to try it. Tossing the small purple fruit into his mouth and chewing it a few times, Yang Kai immediately felt a sweet taste in his mouth, causing his brow to rise slightly. The taste of this thing was extremely good, and the sweetness seemed to go straight to his mind, making him feel very comfortable. After swallowing the purple mist fruit, Yang Kai felt a warm current spread from his abdomen and quickly spread to his limbs and bones, purifying his Saint Qi. Although the effect was not great, it did have some effect. Yang Kai didn't say a word and simply picked up another purple mist fruit and ate it. After eating 3 in a row, he began to praise. Seeing this expression on his face, Dai Yuan was also very happy. Next, Yang Kai and Dai Yuan chatted about what had happened after Liu Yang's departure from each other in the desert, and for a time, both host and guest were quite happy. However, what made Yang Kai depressed was that Dai Yuan seemed to have come here just to chat with him, not mentioning a single word about her purpose. In any case, whatever Yang Kai said, she had something to say. The atmosphere was quite harmonious, as if two old friends who had not seen each other for many years were talking about their lives, and with Dai Yuan's sweet laughter from time to time passed by quickly. 2 hours later, Yang Kai couldn't hold himself back and lightly coughed. What matter does Lady Dai Yuan have for coming to Dragon Cave Mountain? If there is anything this Yang can help with, please speak clearly. As long as it is within the scope of this Yang's ability, this Yang will not refuse. Yang Kai didn't speak too confidently. If it wasn't something important and he didn't want to waste too much time, he would help her if he could, but if Dai Yuan asked him to do something dangerous, Yang Kai wouldn't agree. He didn't want to make too many enemies on Shadowed Star. Just Lu Yi from Flowing Cloud Valley was enough to give him a headache. Yang Kai also didn't know why this guy named Lu Yi was targeting him, causing him to be confused. After fighting with him in the third layer of Liu Yang Sandfield, although he had managed to cut off one of his arms with his space blade, Yang Kai wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully until such a person died. When Yang Kai asked this question, Dai Yuan immediately fell silent, biting her red lips lightly, as if she was hesitant to speak. Yang Kai didn't urge her and simply sat down and waited quietly, at the same time feeling quite vigilant. Seeing Dai Yuan so hesitant, it seemed that what she wanted him to help her with was not a small matter. Yang Kai was already considering what words he could use to refuse her. At that moment though, Dai Yuan suddenly raised her head and stared at Yang Kai with her pair of eyes that shone like stars, saying something earth-shattering. Junior brother Yang is an origin grade alchemist, right? Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as a light flashed across them, but he soon smiled and asked, why does Sister Dai Yuan ask such a question? No one on Shadowed Star knew that he was an origin grade alchemist, not even Yang Yun or Wu Yi. Yang Kai had told them about it before, but neither of them took it seriously, thinking that Yang Kai was just joking. How did Dai Yuan know? The fact that Dragon Cave Mountain had an origin grade artifact refiner was enough to make people jealous, but if it weren't for the numerous spirit arrays and Qian Tong's protection, how could Dragon Cave Mountain have remained stable until now? If news of another origin grade alchemist were to spread, it was hard to say what kind of uproar it would cause. Junior brother Yang, there is no need to deny it. Since I said so, I must have my reasons. Dai Yuan smiled lightly and brushed her hair behind her ear. Dai Yuan smiled lightly, reached out her hand, and brushed her hair back behind her ear, staring back at him without flinching. But you can rest assured, besides me, no one else knows about this matter. If junior brother Yang feels uneasy, you can kill me here to silence me. Before I left Colored Glass Sect, I didn't tell anyone I was coming here and I did my best to conceal my whereabouts, so even if I die here, only a few people here will know. You don't need to worry about Colored Glass Sect coming for revenge. Killing her to silence her was something Yang Kai couldn't bring himself to do. If Dai Yuan was an enemy, he wouldn't have any concerns, but he had no grievances with her, so he couldn't kill her just because she knew he was an origin grade alchemist, right? Moreover, Dai Yuan had already said so much, even going so far as to propose killing him to silence him, which was enough to show her sincerity. Yang Kai's expression remained indifferent as he pondered for a moment before frowning and asking, how did you know? You really are. Dai Yuan's calm eyes suddenly flashed with a look of pleasant surprise as she stared at Yang Kai. Yang Kai was startled for a moment before smiling bitterly, grit his teeth, and cupped his fists. Girl is quite insidious, this Yang understand. Up until now, how could he not see that Dai Yuan's words just now were nothing more than a bluff? When he saw her speak so confidently before, Yang Kai thought he had really been exposed, but now, it seemed the other party was just suspecting him. Yang Kai estimated that if he had just denied it, the other party would no longer have any doubts. Dai Yuan smiled awkwardly, stood up, and politely bowed to Yang Kai, apologizing. Junior brother Yang, I'm sorry, I could only come up with this plan because I really can't be certain about this matter. If you feel angry, why don't you scold me a few times? That won't be necessary. Yang Kai shook his head, knowing that Dai Yuan was trying to resolve his grievances, but he had fallen into someone else's trap because of a moment of carelessness, so how could he scold her? Many thanks, junior brother Yang, master's magnanimity. Dai Yuan thanked him before sitting down again. But how do you know I'm an origin grade alchemist? Yang Kai asked curiously. I only know you're an alchemist, as for what grade you are, I don't know. Dai Yuan lowered her head and smiled, seemingly in a good mood. That's strange enough. Yang Kai looked at her, hoping she could explain. It's very simple. Because of some special reasons, I am very sensitive to medicinal fragrances and pills, and junior brother Yang always has a variety of pill fragrances lingering around you, so I know you're an alchemist. Even now, you're also giving off a pill fragrance. If I'm not mistaken, you should have refined an origin condensing pill and blood jasmine pill, right? Moreover, that was at least half a year ago. Yang Kai was dumbfounded. Chapter 1266. Yang Kai had heard of some people who could smell a woman's fragrance, but he had never heard of anyone who could smell the medicinal and pill fragrances of others. On top of that, what Dai Yuan just said was true. More than half a year ago, Yang Kai really did refine origin condensing pills and blood jasmine pills. Of course, there were also some other pills that Dai Yuan had refined, but perhaps because the pill fragrances had dissipated too long ago, Dai Yuan couldn't smell them or simply didn't mention them. This special ability surprised Yang Kai greatly. Of course, based on this alone, I can't judge that junior brother Yang is an origin-grade alchemist. It is also possible that there is such a powerful master here and junior brother Yang has been around him for a long time, allowing him to emit a pill fragrance. However, Dai Yuan smiled mysteriously. Since I came here a month ago, I have found that there seems to be no such master here. Moreover, the healing pills you gave to the disciples of Shadow Moon Hall and me in Liu Yang's desert were clearly freshly refined pills, so Dai Yuan boldly guessed that junior brother Yang was the alchemist. Each of those pills was of extraordinary quality, so the level of the person who refined them was obviously not low. Yang Kai didn't deny it this time. Dai Yuan having such a strange ability was useless even if he denied it, but at the same time, Yang Kai secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After all, only Dai Yuan had such an ability. It was impossible for others to infer that Yang Kai was an origin-grade alchemist from this information. Dai Yuan also seemed to be a trustworthy person, so Yang Kai wasn't worried that she would betray him. Considering all this, Yang Kai's heart calmed down slightly and he smiled warmly. Sister Dai Yuan must first confirm this Yang's identity as an alchemist. Could it be that you want me to help you with alchemy? He could only make such a guess. And if this was the case, everything could be explained. However, Dai Yuan slowly shook her head. It's not alchemy, but it is indeed related to alchemy, otherwise I would not have come here. Yang Kai smiled lightly. Although I don't know what you want me to do, on Shadowed Star, there should be more than one person who can help you. I won't lie to Sister Dai Yuan, I am just an origin-grade low-rank alchemist. Your status in Colored Glass Sect doesn't seem to be low, so is there no origin-grade alchemist in Colored Glass Sect? And even if the Colored Glass Sect didn't have it, couldn't he ask the Grand Masters of Medicine Pill Sect to take action? Every one of them has attainments in alchemy that I can't compare to. Yang Kai also learned about it last time. Medicine Pill Sect had 5 origin-grade alchemists, each of whom was highly respected. What's more, Colored Glass Sect was a huge sect. It was impossible for there not to be an alchemist of this level. At the very least, there would be one. But she actually went so far for what was close at hand. Running all the way to Dragon Cave Mountain to find him made Yang Kai feel quite strange. If I could, why would I embarrass junior brother Yang? Dai Yuan smiled bitterly. There is indeed a Grandmaster Xiao in the sect who is an origin-grade alchemist, but Dai Yuan really has some difficulties and cannot ask Grandmaster Xiao to take action. Grandmaster Xiao. Yang Kai raised his brow as a kind face appeared in his mind, recalling Xiao Fu Sheng from Medicine King's Valley. Yang Kai hadn't expected this alchemist from Colored Glass Sect to also be surnamed Xiao. As for the seniors of Medicine Pill Sect, Dai Yuan frowned. 4 of them have the same reasons as Grandmaster Xiao, so it is inconvenient for me to ask them. The last one is a suitable candidate, but unfortunately, the price to pay is too great. Dai Yuan does not have the ability to do so. Yang Kai looked at her in amazement. This woman's strength was not low and her methods were not ordinary. Yang Kai had thought that she would be highly valued and cultivated in Colored Glass Sect, but from her words, Yang Kai smelled something unusual. Dai Yuan did not seem to be the same as he had thought. In Colored Glass Sect, she could call for wind and call for rain. Thinking back to the mountain valley in the 3rd layer of the Liu Yang Sandfield, While waiting for the red candle fruit to ripen, several nearby colored glass sect disciples clearly saw Dai Yuan but did not greet her. From beginning to end, Dai Yuan had acted alone, with no other colored glass sect disciples accompanying her. The difference in treatment between her and Yin Su Dai was like the difference between heaven and earth. Yang Kai suddenly felt like he understood something. So, the only one I can find is junior brother Yang. Dai Yuan suddenly raised her head and looked at Yang Kai eagerly, her stars-like eyes revealing a pleading look. Yang Kai's brow twitched and he hesitated for a moment before asking, "Can you tell me what you want me to help you with?" Dai Yuan bit her lip and said awkwardly, "Before junior brother Yang agrees, it is really inconvenient for me to tell you." Yang Kai's face sank as he became a little disgruntled. This woman had come to him for help but was being so vague. Even if Yang Kai had a good impression of her, he wouldn't foolishly agree to this kind of thing. Just as he was about to refuse, Dai Yuan hurriedly said, "But I can guarantee that it will definitely be within junior brother Yang's ability and won't require you to waste too much time and energy. If everything goes well, it will only take 3 days. After that, Dai Yuan will definitely reward you handsomely." Yang Kai naturally didn't care about this kind of reward. Dai Yuan didn't even have the ability to invite an elder from Medicine Pill Sect, so how could she possibly have anything good to offer him? However, if it only took 3 days and didn't require too much effort, Yang Kai could consider it. But Dai Yuan looked at Yang Kai cautiously, as if she didn't have the confidence to convince him, weakly saying, "If junior brother Yang agrees, you must return to colored glass sect with me." Yang Kai raised his eyes and looked at her, but Dai Yuan didn't say a word, simply biting her thin lip and waiting for Yang Kai's reply. After a while, Yang Kai smiled lightly, "Allow me to consider this matter. The scenery here on Dragon Cave Mountain is quite good, so if Dai Yuan has nothing to do, you can walk around freely. As for what you asked for, I will give you an answer in 3 days." Dai Yuan's eyes dimmed as she knew that Yang Kai was already giving her face by not directly refusing her. The evasiveness in his tone was so obvious, how could Dai Yuan not understand? The other party saying that he would give her an answer in 3 days was likely a waste of time. Sighing faintly, although she was full of disappointment, Dai Yuan still squeezed out a smile. "Then Dai Yuan will wait for junior brother Yang's good news." Immediately, Yang Kai said goodbye to her and left the loft. After Yang Kai left, Dai Yuan turned around and walked up to the 2nd floor, her brow furrowed in worry. How could she not know that she had made things difficult for Yang Kai this time? Since she had come here to ask him for a favor, naturally she should make things clear, but there were some things that she couldn't say out loud. Dai Yuan was thinking of leaving quietly so as not to embarrass Yang Kai and embarrass herself by refusing 3 days later, but for some reason, she decided to stay and wait for 3 days. Perhaps it was because there was still a trace of expectation in her heart. Yang Kai left the loft and walked back with a depressed expression. It was only because Dai Yuan had proposed this that Yang Kai didn't embarrass her on the spot. If it had been anyone else, Yang Kai wouldn't have even bothered to speak. Returning to the original loft, to Yang Kai's surprise, Yang Yang and Wu Yi hadn't left yet. Instead, they seemed to be waiting for him to come back, standing at the entrance of the loft like a beautiful scenery. Yang Kai thought that these 2 women would gossip about him, but unexpectedly they didn't ask anything and just watched as he passed by them. Entering the loft, Yang Yang and Wu Yi followed. Immediately, Yang Yang pulled out a token from somewhere. This token was exactly the same as the one she had given Yang Kai, and after pouring her Saint Chi into it, a ray of light shot out from it. In the next moment, the entire loft seemed to be wrapped in an invisible barrier that not only isolated sound and sight, but also suppressed one's divine sense. "What are you doing?" Yang Kai asked in amazement. Yang Yang walked over with a grin on her face and sat down in a chair next to him, exchanging a glance with Wu Yi before asking, "Are you not going to agree?" Yang Kai's expression became even more shocked as he glanced between Yang Yang and Wu Yi. After seeing the light in the eyes of these 2 women, he immediately understood. "Were you eavesdropping?" Wu Yi blushed but didn't try to explain, apparently admitting to it. Yang Yang, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened and calmly said, "What eavesdropping? I was just testing the power of a newly developed spirit array." "What kind of spirit array has such an effect?" Yang Kai was surprised. When he was talking with Dai Yuan just now, he didn't notice any trace of their conversation being eavesdropped on, but now, the spirit array arranged by Yang Yang was simply incredible. You won't understand even if I explain it to you, just use this. Yang Yang waved her hand and took out a palm-sized, disc-shaped object. This black disc was made of some unknown material, but when Yang Kai swept it with his divine sense, he couldn't help letting out a light sigh as he heard Dai Yuan's soft sigh coming from this disc. However, other than this sound, there was no other reaction. Obviously, this disc was used in conjunction with the spirit array in the loft to monitor sound. Yang Kai really didn't know when Yang Yang had arranged this spirit array, but it was likely she had done so a long time ago and was just waiting for a guest to arrive so she could test its effects. Suddenly, Yang Kai's expression changed as he stared at Yang Yang and asked, "My cave mansion doesn't have such a thing, right?" "No." Yang Yang denied, her small head shaking like a rattle. "Why would I arrange such a thing in your cave?" Yang Kai nodded gently, expressing satisfaction, but his expression suddenly became serious as he reprimanded, "What a disgrace. Don't do such a despicable thing again. If someone sees through it, I'd like to see how you'll clean up the mess." Yang and Wu Yi glanced at each other and couldn't help sticking out their tongues. Yang Kai quickly changed the subject and said, "But since you've already eavesdropped, you should understand that I won't agree to such a thing. Why do you seem to have different opinions?" Chapter 1267. Yang Kai was full of suspicions. According to Wu Yi, Dai Yuan had closed herself up in seclusion since coming here. Even if Wu Yi had taken the initiative to visit her a few times, they hadn't had much interaction. However, as soon as he returned, Yang Yang had immediately asked him for an answer. Obviously, she was very concerned about this matter. Yang Kai couldn't help wondering if she wanted him to go to Colored Glass sect. These two women in front of him had no friendship with Dai Yuan, so there was no need for them to speak up for her, right? Yang Yang heard this and nodded without hesitation. "If possible, I naturally want you to agree to her request." Yang Kai narrowed his eyes and stared at Yang Yang for a moment before faintly asking, "Speak your mind, you shouldn't be so sympathetic. What are you scheming?" Yang smiled mysteriously. "It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say I'm scheming. But let's talk about the gains and losses of agreeing to her request first. She said that what she wants you to do will only take 3 days at most, and it should be within your ability. If what she said is true, then no matter what it is, it shouldn't be difficult for you. The only trouble is that you will have to make a trip to Colored Glass sect." Yang Kai nodded lightly and didn't interrupt, motioning for her to continue. Seeing that Yang Kai didn't show any disgust, Yang's spirit shook and she continued, "Let's not consider her offer of a reward for the time being. With your current net worth, I'm afraid the reward she offers you won't even enter your eyes. So helping her with this favor won't bring me any benefits. Moreover, running to someone else's sect isn't appropriate. If Dai Yuan's status was the same as Yin Su Dai's, it wouldn't be a big deal. But from what I can see, she doesn't seem to be very favored in Colored Glass sect." Yang Kai frowned slightly. Yang smiled. "About her, I was curious before, so I inquired about her with Wu Yi. Can you guess what we learned?" "What?" Yang Kai looked up at them. This time, Wu Yi spoke up. "As you guessed, this Dai Yuan really wasn't very favored in Colored Glass sect, but that only happened in the last decade or so. Do you know who the most outstanding and famous disciple of Colored Glass sect was?" "Dai Yuan." "That's right. In the past, in Colored Glass sect, Dai Yuan had suppressed Yin Su Dai, but for some reason, Yin Su Dai had been suppressed. Dai Yuan suddenly disappeared from the sight of Colored Glass sect's upper echelons. Instead, Yin Su Dai had replaced her, which was why Yin Su Dai was able to become the representative of Colored Glass sect's younger generation and make a name for herself. What exactly had happened in there? We don't know. However, the elders of Colored Glass sect seemed to have a love-hate relationship with Dai Yuan. The cultivation resources and accommodation provided to her were not inferior to Yin Su Dai's, but there was no deliberate effort to cultivate her. It's a strange feeling. It really is strange. Yang Kai was also puzzled. He had never fought with Yin Su Dai, but he had seen Dai Yuan fight before. He felt that Dai Yuan was a very strong Saint King realm cultivator. Although she had been bullied by a cultivator from Heaven Battling Union in the Liuyang Desert, that was only because she was angry and had acted recklessly. If it had been a real fight, Dai Yuan wouldn't have been afraid of that person. However, there was still a certain gap between her and Chu Changfeng, Fang Tianzhong, and Wei Guchang, something Yang Kai could also see. If I help her, what can I gain or lose? I don't think I'll gain anything, but I also won't lose anything. Yang Kai shot Yang Yun a strange look. Wu Yi giggled, as long as you won't lose anything, that's enough. As for what you'll gain, heh, selling her a favor will be a small gain. After all, she was very favored many years ago, so who knows when she will rise again. When that time comes, making friends with such a woman will be helpful to our future development. Besides, elder sister Yang Yun seems to have some other plans. Yang Kai couldn't help turning his eyes to Yang Yun. Yang Yun gently nodded and asked, have you heard of Colored Glass Sect's Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain? Yang Kai shook his head honestly. He wasn't very familiar with the great forces on Shadowed Star, let alone what they possessed, but Yang Yun specifically mentioning this Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain seemed to be quite extraordinary. Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain is a naturally occurring mountain formed from thousand illusion colored glass. It is located in the territory of Colored Glass Sect, and because of this Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain, Colored Glass Sect chose to establish its sect there. On the other hand, Thousand Illusion Colored Glass is a precious artifact refining treasure that has many transformative and self-repairing functions. I need this kind of thing, and a lot of it at that. Yang Yun said seriously. Yang Kai laughed in surprise, even if you say so, I can't help it. Since Colored Glass Sect established its sect there because of this Colored Glass Mountain, it's impossible for their elders to give me this Thousand Illusion Colored Glass, right? Of course not, and we can't afford it. Yang Yun snorted, you don't know, but this Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain is a famous existence on Shadowed Star. Colored Glass Sect uses this mountain as its array core to arrange a large spirit array that emits colored glass divine light. It has the effect of binding one's body and capturing one's soul. It is said that a great disaster for Colored Glass Sect was resolved by this Colored Glass Mountain. Moreover, this mountain is a huge hole. It is extremely difficult to cut off a small amount of Thousand Illusion Colored Glass from it. Even Colored Glass Sect can only obtain a small amount every few decades. Most of this Thousand Illusion Colored Glass is kept by Colored Glass Sect while the other half is sold. Every time, the various great forces would go crazy over it. The price is so high that it makes one's hair stand on end. Now that we are so poor, how can we afford such a thing? You're so poor again. Yang Kai was shocked. He remembered that the last time he came out, he had heard from the Haiku family cultivator that Yang Yun and Wu Yi had gone to an auction to sell some artifacts. Although Yang Kai didn't know how many Saint Crystals they had sold, he was certain it wasn't a small number, so how could they have spent all the Saint Crystals they had obtained? Yang Yun wore an embarrassed look. The amount of materials needed to arrange this spirit array is too huge, and you forbade us from continuing to sell artifacts, so we have no source of income. Naturally, we're just sitting around and eating. Even if we're poor, we can't sell artifacts. Yang Kai's face became solemn as he quickly said, at least, we can't sell them until we're strong enough. I know, Yang Yun pouted. Yang Yun pouted unhappily. According to her idea, she could directly refine 100 or so high-grade artifacts and hold a special auction for them, alleviating the current embarrassment, but with Yang Kai's order and Wu Yi's persuasion, she didn't carry out this crazy plan. Let's continue talking about the Thousand Illusion Colored Glass. Yang Kai looked at her with a smile. What exactly do you want to do? How do you want me to obtain the Thousand Illusion Colored Glass under the nose of Colored Glass Sect? Yang Yun grinned meaningfully, clapped her hands, and called out, Xiao Xiao. As soon as she called out, a grey figure suddenly rushed in from the outside and stood motionless in front of the three of them, his hands touching his knees as he stared innocently towards Yang Yun. It was Yang Kai's stone mongoose. Yang Kai's eyes lit up, immediately understanding what Yang Yun was planning. Xiao Xiao can even ignore the spirit array I arranged, so breaking through Colored Glass Sect is naturally not a problem. I don't believe that colored glass sect spirit array is better than the one I arranged. As long as you bring it into colored glass sect, when the time comes, 1000 illusion colored glass mountain will definitely be empty. After Yang Kai heard this, cold sweat dripped down his back for a moment. Colored glass sect had committed a sin. What was so bad about it? How could there be something like 1000 illusion colored glass mountain? They probably thought that 1000 illusion colored glass mountain was protected by many layers of sect defending arrays, so not even a fly could fly in. But how could they have imagined that a heaven-defying existence like the stone mongoose existed in this world? As the saying goes, don't be afraid of thieves stealing, be afraid of thieves remembering, and 1000 illusion colored glass mountain had been targeted by Yang Yun. The stone mongoose naturally liked to devour rare ores, and since 1000 illusion colored glass could be used for artifact refining, it was definitely one of those ores that the stone mongoose liked. The stone mongoose came and went without a trace, not giving off any life aura. Presumably, even a third-order origin returning realm master wouldn't be able to detect its existence. When the time came, wouldn't it be easy to release the stone mongoose and obtain some 1000 illusion colored glass? Perhaps when Yang Kai left colored glass sect with the stone mongoose, the elders of colored glass sect wouldn't even notice that 1000 illusion colored glass mountain was missing. I've wanted that 1000 illusion colored glass for a long time now, but unfortunately I've never had a chance. Now that someone has taken the initiative to invite you over, this is the best opportunity I've ever had, Yang said as she looked at Yang Kai eagerly. What do you want to refine with the 1000 illusion colored glass? Yang Kai was still worried and asked with a frown. After all, if he ran into someone else's sect to steal something, once exposed, he would be hated. If what Yang Yun wanted to refine wasn't important, Yang Kai didn't want to offend him. I want to refine a treasure. Yang Yun smiled mysteriously but didn't explain, simply saying, it's not convenient for me to say right now because I don't have enough knowledge about artifact refining and spirit arrays, but I can tell you that this thing will be of great use to you and definitely won't disappoint you. When the time comes to refine it, you will definitely rejoice at the choice you made. Another thing that can't be said. Yang Kai smiled bitterly and shook his head. He really didn't know what was wrong with these women today, but when they spoke, it was hard to keep him in suspense, making him gnash his teeth in anger but unable to do anything about it. Then are you going to colored glass sect or not? I'll think about it. Although Yang Kai was also somewhat tempted, this wasn't a trivial matter, so he couldn't afford to be careless. Come on, come on. Yang Yun begged, pulling out something from her ring and waving it in front of Yang Kai. We'll go look for this on the way. If we're lucky, it may be able to alleviate our current predicament. Yang Kai looked at the thing in her hand and his expression couldn't help changing. Big brother Yang, you should agree to big sister Yang Yun's request. Moreover, I see that you've been in seclusion for quite some time now, so it's time you go out and relax. Perhaps you'll gain something else from this trip. Wu Yi also tried to persuade him, but her words were much more clever. Unlike Yang Yun, she didn't try to be as direct as Yang Kai's and instead focused on his cultivation. Chapter 1268. All of Dragon Cave Mountain had always been peaceful and quiet because there weren't many cultivators living here, only a few dozen at most. Although their cultivations weren't very high, they were all extremely diligent and spent most of their time in retreat. Only the cultivator who stood guard would walk around from time to check the situation around Dragon Cave Mountain. Today was the 3-day deadline she had agreed to meet with Yang Kai. Dai Yuan woke up from her meditation at dawn and sat down restlessly, hoping to catch a glimpse of Yang Kai's figure. Although she knew this was probably an extravagant hope, she still held on to it. The sun had already risen and its warm rays added a touch of hazy beauty to Dragon Cave Mountain. This place was indeed a good place to cultivate one's mind and soul, not much worse than Yang Kai's 1000 Illusion Peak in Colored Glass Sect. She really didn't know how these people had managed to transform an ordinary mountain range into something like this. She had heard that no one cared about this place before, but now, it had become a famous cultivation holy land in the vicinity. Many cultivators who didn't belong to any sect had come here because of its reputation, wanting to join this place and find a place to stay. However, the cultivator here did not accept outsiders, nor did they have any intention of developing and growing, simply living and cultivating on their own. This was a wise approach. After all, this place was still under the nose of Shadowmoon Hall. If they really had the intention to develop and grow, Shadowmoon Hall would definitely not sit idly by. Considering all this, Dai Yuan couldn't help laughing. With Yang Kai here, with his shrewdness and means, he would definitely not dig his own grave. Dai Yuan's worries were groundless. After thinking about this for a while, her mood calmed down greatly. Looking up at the sky, the sun was already high up in the sky, but looking down again, there was no sign of the figure she was hoping to see. Dai Yuan sighed faintly, knowing that she had probably waited in vain. She didn't feel any resentment or unwillingness, just a bitter smile appearing on her face. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, her expression suddenly changed and she turned back again. In an instant, Dai Yuan's eyes lit up with both surprise and joy as she stared down at the figure who had appeared at some unknown time below. "Lady Dai Yuan, good morning." Yang Kai stood below and greeted her with a smile. Dai Yuan froze in place for a moment, but soon her expression returned to normal and she gently nodded to Yang Kai, "Junior brother Yang, good morning as well. Please wait a moment, I'll be right down." Saying so, she quickly turned around and walked down the stairs. Although her expression was calm, her slightly disorderly steps revealed her nervousness at the moment. She didn't know what answer Yang Kai would give her. If he said he would refuse her, there was no need for him to come here so early in the morning, right? Moreover, his evasiveness from a few days ago was very obvious, so even if Kai Yang rejected her, she wouldn't be surprised. But if he said he would accept her, why would he accept her? Dai Yuan's young to herself. With such thoughts running through her mind, Dai Yuan soon arrived on the first floor of the loft. After seeing Yang Kai, she stared straight at him, not knowing what to say for a while. "Does Lady Dai Yuan have anything to pack? If not, we'll be on our way," Yang Kai said with a warm smile on his face. "Huh?" Dai Yuan froze up and froze in place. Yang Kai chuckled and said, "What's wrong? Didn't Lady Dai Yuan want to go with you to Colored Glass Sect? Could it be that the scenery of Dragon Cave Mountain made Lady Dai Yuan forget to return? If that's the case, you might as well stay here for a few more days." "No, no." Dai Yuan reacted and quickly waved her hands, her eyes filling with surprise. "Although the scenery here is good, I'm not in the mood to appreciate it. It's just that Lady Dai Yuan is wondering why I agreed to go with you." Yang Kai looked at Dai Yuan with a smile, revealing the doubts in her heart. Dai Yuan's expression was a little awkward. She had originally asked Yang Kai to go with her to Colored Glass Sect, but now that he had agreed, she was still feeling suspicious. "It's very simple." Yang Kai had already prepared an excuse and immediately said, "After returning from Liuyang Desert, I entered retreat for half a year and felt that it was time to go out and walk around. Now that I have reached a bottleneck in my cultivation, I naturally don't want to remain behind closed doors. On top of that, you should be familiar with my origins, so I am quite curious about the various great sects on Shadowed Star. Now that I have such an opportunity to get close to them, I naturally don't want to miss it and broaden my horizons." Hearing this, Dai Yuan's doubts disappeared and she smiled, "So that's how it is. However, although our Colored Glass Sect is not weak on Shadowed Star, in terms of prestige and influence, we are inferior to Heaven Battling Union and Thunder Typhoon Sect. If Junior Brother Yang has the opportunity to visit Heaven Battling Union and Thunder Typhoon Sect, he will understand the shortcomings of our Colored Glass Sect. However, Junior Brother Yang has actually reached a bottleneck in his cultivation. Your aptitude is truly amazing." Dai Yuan's words were heartfelt. When she and Yang Kai were together in Liuyang Desert, Yang Kai was only a first-order Saint King. Although she didn't know what happened to Yang Kai after they separated that allowed him to break through to the second-order Saint King realm, the fact that he had now reached the peak of the second-order Saint King realm was simply too shocking. It seems that Junior Brother Yang obtained an opportunity in Liuyang Desert that was not small, otherwise, how could his cultivation have increased so quickly? Dai Yuan thought to herself. However, now that Yang Kai had reached a bottleneck, it was indeed time for him to walk around. Thinking so, Dai Yuan smiled and said, "I don't have anything to pack, so let's set off. This place is not close to Colored Glass Sect, so even if we use the space array, It will take at least a month to arrive. It's fine, this trip is mainly for relaxation, so time isn't a problem. By the way, I forgot to tell you, I'm not going alone this time. Young Inflammation will also be coming with me. Is that convenient? Yang Kai suddenly changed the subject and asked. Sister Young Inflammation? There's nothing inconvenient about it. Dai Yuan heard this and immediately nodded, not hesitating in the slightest as she swept her eyes around. Sure enough, she saw Yang Yang standing not far away, wearing a black robe, like a delicate black flower. Yang Kai took the initiative to explain, this senior sister of mine is quite interested in spirit arrays, so she insisted on coming with me to see your noble sect spirit arrays in an attempt to learn something from them. You know, women, I can't win her over, so I can only bring her along. Yang Kai originally wanted to say that women like to pester endlessly, but as soon as these words left his mouth, he realized they were wrong and quickly swallowed them back down. Even so, Dai Yuan still shot him a reproachful look, causing him to feel quite embarrassed. For a moment, he had forgotten that Dai Yuan was also a woman. However, Yang Inflammation's identity to the outside world was Yang Kai's senior sister, something Yang Kai had mentioned to Qian Tong before. Dai Yuan readily agreed and Yang Kai did not hesitate, beckoning Yang Inflammation over. The three of them summoned their star shuttles, turned into streaks of light, and flew out of Dragon Cave Mountain. Although Yang Kai and Yang Inflammation had both left Dragon Cave Mountain, Wu Yi was still in charge. With the spirit arrays arranged by Yang Inflammation in advance and the token given to Wu Yi, as long as they did not encounter too powerful an attack, Dragon Cave Mountain would remain safe. What's more, Dragon Cave Mountain had no enemies now, so naturally no one would think of attacking it. Soon, the three of them arrived at Heavenly Fate City. When Dai Yuan came here before, she had flown directly from Colored Glass Sect without using the space arrays of any city, so when she said to Yang Kai 3 days ago that no one knew she had come here, it was not a lie. No one knew she had come to Dragon Cave Mountain, not even Wei Guchang and Dong Shena, who were in retreat. It was precisely because flying from Colored Glass Sect to Heavenly Fate City took so much time that Dai Yuan had come here a month ago. Fortunately, Shadow Moon Hall had a good relationship with Colored Glass Sect, and Dai Yuan had a certain status in Colored Glass Sect, so it was not difficult for the three of them to use Heavenly Fate City space array. After paying a certain amount of Saint Crystals, the space array was immediately opened to the three of them. After passing through the space arrays of several cities, Dai Yuan led Yang Kai and Yang Inflammation on their star shuttles. The three of them moved as fast as lightning, but the journey was relatively boring. Dai Yuan was not a person who liked to communicate with others. If she had not asked Yang Kai for help, she would not have deliberately tried to befriend Yang Kai when they were in the Liuyang Desert. Yang Inflammation also seemed to be afraid of strangers, always wearing a black robe, as if she was afraid others would see her face. As a result, besides Yang Kai saying a few words to them, the two women did not say a word and just hurried along. Seeing this, Yang Kai also fell silent and continued to refine the golden blood threads in his body while secretly urging his artifact spirit and the origin-grade artifact refining furnace to speed up the process of refining the dragon bone and dragon bead. Along the way, he didn't waste any time and made full use of every bit of time he had. The more he refined his golden blood threads, the more interested he became in Demon Blood Temple's Demon Blood Thread secret technique. This secret technique seemed to have been tailor-made for him, but he had only managed to obtain half of it, a truly regrettable result. However, making friends with Demon Blood Temple disciple Deng Ning had given Yang Kai a chance to obtain the remaining half of the secret technique in the future, but that would have to wait until Yang Kai became stronger before he could do so. Time flew by, and as the trio hurried along, a month passed by in the blink of an eye. The journey was uneventful and uneventful. On this day, while Yang Kai was sitting atop his star shuttle, silently refining his golden blood threads and urging his artifact refining furnace, Dai Yuan, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped her star shuttle. Seeing this, Yang Kai also withdrew his divine sense and stood side by side with Yang Inflammation, staring forward with rapt attention. However, all they could see was a series of mountain ranges in front of them, nothing out of the ordinary. Yang Kai's brow furrowed as he realized that Colored Glass Sect should be in this mountain range. Chapter 1269. We're almost there. 1,000 kilometers ahead of us is Colored Glass Sect's headquarters. Please follow me closely. Dai Yuan turned around and exhorted before immediately controlling her star shuttle to fly forward again, but this time she didn't fly very fast and would change direction from time to time, seemingly trying to avoid some kind of barrier. Yang Kai was well aware of this. After all, Colored Glass Sect's influence wasn't small, so it was only natural for them to set up a barrier around their sect, not to mention they had the financial resources and strength to do so. However, after looking at Yang a little and noticing the disdain that flashed across her face, Yang Kai immediately understood that the barrier around this sect was extremely fragile and she didn't put it in her eyes at all. Of course, this was only true for Yang. Although Yang Kai could also perceive some subtle energy fluctuations nearby, he couldn't see anything too specific. If he wanted to crack this barrier, the only thing he could do was use brute force. 1,000 kilometers wasn't a long distance, so after half a stick of incense worth of time, the trio flew into the mountain range Yang Kai had seen before. Here, Dai Yuan seemed to become much more enthusiastic, treating Yang Kai as a guest and flying side by side with him, taking the initiative to explain, "This is the Grand Crystal Mountain Range controlled by our Colored Glass Sect. It stretches for 100,000 kilometers and contains no less than 1,000 large and small peaks. Depending on the geographical location and world energy density of each peak, most of them are inhabited by elders and disciples of different levels of strength and status. There are also some peaks that are vacant and used for other purposes. The center of the Grand Crystal Mountain Range is where most of our Colored Glass Sect's disciples gather. Many disciples choose to exchange cultivation experiences, trade items with others, or take on some tasks from the sect. Of course, there are also some who issue their own tasks. I also heard that some of these disciples will look for suitable candidates here and then travel together. It seems to be quite interesting." When Dai Yuan spoke of this, a look of longing appeared on her face. Yang Kai remained calm on the surface, but when he saw the strange look on her face, he immediately understood that this woman, who seemed difficult to communicate with, seemed to be envious of others who could integrate into the life of a group. On top of that, inside Colored Glass Sect, she was probably extremely lonely. Yang Kai felt a little sad but didn't say anything. Dai Yuan quickly restrained the look on her face and smiled. "I live on Thousand Illusion Peak. Although it's not very lively, it's quite quiet, so it's not a bad place. Although Thousand Illusion Peak isn't big, it's enough for me to live alone. The world energy aura there isn't thin, so it can be considered a mid-level peak in the sect." Yang Kai nodded lightly as he stood high up in the sky, flying forward with Dai Yuan while looking around, taking in the scenery inside Colored Glass Sect. Along the way, the large and small mountain peaks all had traces of Colored Glass Sect's disciples. Some were cultivating martial skills, some were playing around, some were exchanging pointers with their fellow sect disciples, all of them full of vigor and vitality. Throughout the mountain peaks, magnificent buildings stood proudly, some exquisite, some magnificent, some grand, some grand, some grand, some magnificent, some exquisite, some grand, some magnificent. Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh to himself. Worthy of one of Shadowed Star's great forces, this kind of power was not something Dragon Cave Mountain could compare with. Although Dragon Cave Mountain's world energy aura was quite good and seemed to be thriving, compared to this Grand Crystal Mountain Range, it seemed a little petty. If Colored Glass Sect was so magnificent, what about the other more powerful sects on Shadowed Star? Yang Kai had not been to the Shadow Moon Hall, but he estimated it wouldn't be any worse. "I heard that your noble sect has a mysterious Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain. May I know where it is?" Yang Kai asked casually. Since he had come here for Colored Glass Mountain, naturally he had to determine its location first. While asking, Yang Kai looked around but found nothing. There was nothing particularly special about the peaks in his line of sight, so Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain shouldn't be here. Junior brother Yang actually knows about our Colored Glass Mountain? Dai Yuan's eyes flashed with surprise. Lady Dai Yuan must be joking. Although this Yang is a newcomer, the name of your noble sect's Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain is so resounding that this Yang has heard a thing or two about it. I heard that this mysterious mountain is entirely composed of Thousand Illusion Colored Glass. Is that true? Hearing Yang Kai ask about colored glass mountain, Dai Yuan's eyes flashed with a complicated look for some reason. After pondering for a while, she gently nodded. Our sect's thousand illusion-colored glass mountain is indeed made up of thousand illusion-colored glass, and it is a single piece. Its weight cannot be estimated. Although thousand illusion-colored glass is extremely precious, and everyone knows that our colored glass sect has such a treasure mountain, it is quite laughable that we can't even utilize 1/10,000th of its full potential, nor can we collect a large amount of thousand illusion-colored glass. Only every few decades can we use some special methods to collect a small amount. This information was basically the same as what Yang Yun had told Yang Kai before, so Yang Kai wasn't surprised. Special methods to collect? Yang Kai asked casually. Dai Yuan showed a trace of embarrassment on her face. Yang Kai chuckled and said, "It seems I've asked something I shouldn't have. Sister Dai Yuan, please pretend you didn't hear me." Dai Yuan smiled apologetically. It's not that Dai Yuan doesn't want to tell you, it's just that this method is classified as one of the sect's core secrets, so no one can disclose it. Once it is disclosed, the punishment will be unimaginable. I hope junior brother Yang can forgive me. It's fine, this Yang was rude. Seemingly because of this matter, Dai Yuan felt somewhat apologetic. After thinking about it for a moment, she said, "Thousand illusion-colored glass mountain isn't this way, but if we take a detour, we can take a look at it from a distance. If junior brother Yang doesn't mind, how about we take a trip there?" She was obviously trying to make up for it, something Yang Kai couldn't ask for more, but on the surface, he still showed some hesitation and said, "Is there something wrong with this?" Thousand illusion-colored glass mountain is your noble sect's supreme treasure. If doing this will cause Sister Dai Yuan any trouble, then there's no need to go. In any case, I was just curious and wanted to broaden my horizons, haha. While Yang Kai was laughing dryly, Yang Inflammation quietly stood behind him and pinched him, clearly blaming Yang Kai. How could such a small action escape Dai Yuan's notice? Turning her beautiful eyes to Yang Inflammation with a smile, she said, "There's nothing wrong with it, it's just taking a look at it from a distance. Presumably, the martial uncles responsible for guarding it won't blame us. Brother Yang, please come with me." As he said this, he immediately changed direction and flew to the side. Yang Kai turned his head and glared at Yang Inflammation before hurriedly following. Yang Inflammation stood in place and curled his lips, a look of indifference on his face. The group of three had not flown far when they were suddenly greeted by several blue streaks of light that flew straight towards them. Not long after, these blue streaks of light appeared in front of Yang Inflammation and the others. They were 3 men and 2 women, their cultivations not high, only 2 saints and 3 transcendents. This kind of cultivation was certainly second to none in Tongxian realm, but on Shadowed Star, it was nothing. After seeing Dai Yuan's face clearly, the 5 people couldn't help showing a trace of surprise, hurriedly cupping their fists and respectfully greeting. "So it is Martial Aunt Dai Yuan, disciples greet Martial Aunt." Martial Aunt. Hearing them address her as such, Yang Kai, who was standing behind them, couldn't help showing a strange look on his face. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he felt relieved. Although Dai Yuan was a disciple of the younger generation of colored glass sect, that was only when compared to the top origin returning realm masters. With her cultivation and realm, she was indeed qualified to be the martial aunt of these 5 people. After exchanging greetings, the one who spoke began to look at Yang Kai and Yang Inflammation. When he saw Yang Inflammation, he didn't show any expression, but after seeing Yang Kai, he actually showed a look of surprise. Are the 5 of you responsible for guarding this area?" Dai Yuan nodded lightly and asked indifferently. "Reporting to Martial Aunt, the area 50 kilometers around here is the area the 5 of us are responsible for," the leading cultivator replied. The leading cultivator hesitated for a moment before asking cautiously, "May I ask Martial Uncle, these 2 they are my guests, you don't need to worry about them. If the elders ask, just answer like this. Yes." The leading cultivator didn't dare to ask any more questions and immediately led the other 4 out of the way. Dai Yuan didn't say a word as she led Yang Kai and Yang Inflammation past them. After the figures of Dai Yuan and the others disappeared, the 5 cultivators glanced at each other, all of them wearing looks of surprise and doubt. Is that martial aunt Dai Yuan who lives on Thousand Illusion Peak? A woman in a light yellow dress who looked to be in her 20s asked. Yes, it is the one who lives on Thousand Illusion Peak. Didn't I hear that she was an outstanding beauty? How did she, The cultivator in the lead suddenly glared fiercely at the woman, glancing around, and after confirming that there was no one around, he shouted, "You dare comment on this kind of thing at will? Do you not want to live anymore?" The woman's face paled, as if she had just remembered something and suddenly felt a little scared. The leading cultivator sighed slightly. You guys entered the sect relatively late, so there are some things you've only heard hearsay and can't be considered true. However, don't inquire about these things rashly. Who knows if you'll violate some taboo, and in the future you'll never be able to stand out in the sect, understood? Understood, the other four all nodded, showing looks of enlightenment on their faces. But martial aunt Dai Yuan actually inviting a guest back is quite strange, the leading cultivator muttered to himself as he shook his head in confusion. One had to know that the one who lived on Thousand Illusion Peak never left the sect and rarely had any contact with others, let alone any sect disciple who was close to her, especially a male. For such a person to actually bring a male friend back, it was naturally suspicious. However, this was just a random thought. This kind of thing wasn't something he could ask too much about. He was just going to wait for the elders to ask about what had just happened and tell them the truth, then everything would be fine. Thinking so, he waved his hand and continued leading the other four cultivators to patrol the area. Chapter 1270. In front of him was a strange hill that was more than 600 feet tall. It was completely grey and barren, without a single blade of grass or tree, as if it was completely made up of grey rocks. This mountain was located in a valley surrounded by several other taller peaks. At first glance, this mountain didn't seem to have anything special about it, but when Yang Kai swept it with his divine sense, he was shocked to find that it was like a clay ox entering the sea, never to return. It was as if this mountain didn't exist at all and he couldn't detect it with his divine sense. Not only that, but there was also an extremely strange power coming from inside this mountain that seemed to be trying to pull at his soul, giving him a terrifying feeling of being swallowed whole. So after releasing his divine sense for a moment, Yang Kai immediately withdrew it. Now, the three of them were standing a few thousand meters away from this mountain, staring at colored glass sect's most precious treasure. "This is your noble sect's Thousand Illusion colored glass mountain?" Yang Kai asked, his eyes flashing a strange light. "Yen, this is Thousand Illusion colored glass mountain. Haha, I've let brother Yang see a joke." Thousand Illusion colored glass mountain's reputation is indeed resounding, but most of the time, it looks like this, very inconspicuous and not consistent with the rumors, so many guests who come here often feel that its reputation is not as good as its reputation. Dai Yuan smiled lightly and explained softly. "Most of the time?" Yang Kai narrowed his eyes. Thousand Illusion colored glass itself has an unpredictable and mysterious ability. What we see now is probably just one of its forms. Yang Yun, who had not spoken until now, suddenly interjected. Dai Yuan looked at her in surprise and nodded. It seems that Sister Yang knows a lot about our colored glass mountain. Yen, this inconspicuous state is indeed just one of its forms. Sometimes, it will release a myriad of lights on its own, making this mountain look like something that doesn't belong in this world. It's extremely beautiful and sometimes it will even change its size, making it very strange. So there's such a thing. Yang Kai suddenly became interested. The corners of Yang Yun's mouth twitched indifferently. He didn't explain much, but casually said, "The spirit array you set up here is quite amazing. It has the effect of suppressing chalk pressure, right?" Dai Yuan heard this and gently nodded. "Yen, it does have a suppressing effect. Although Colored Glass Mountain is located in our colored glass sect, we can't do anything about it, so we can only suppress it here. Otherwise, with its strange ability to transform, it might transform into something else and cause us to lose it." Saying so, Dai Yuan smiled and said, "Good, we can't stay here any longer. The several martial uncles guarding Colored Glass Mountain have already discovered us. If we stay here any longer, they may come up to question us. Let's go." Yang Kai also felt it. Since the three of them arrived here, several divine senses belonging to origin-returning realm masters had swept over them from different directions, but these divine senses were only probing for a brief moment and did not take any further action. As such, Yang Kai wasn't surprised. Dai Yuan turned around and flew off in a certain direction, Yang Kai and Yang Yangyun following closely behind. The two exchanged a glance, Yang Yang nodding lightly while Yang Kai shot a look of understanding. It seemed that the spirit array here wouldn't be able to stop the stone mongoose's invasion. As long as they reached Dai Yuan's Thousand Illusion Peak and found an opportunity to release the stone mongoose, they could just sit back and wait for the harvest to come. Although Yang Kai didn't understand what Yang Yang wanted the Thousand Illusion-colored glass to refine or what was so amazing about it, seeing how colored glass sect treated this strange hill so seriously, how could Yang Kai not understand its value? Along the way, they encountered many colored glass sect disciples, but Yang Kai found one very strange thing. When these colored glass sect disciples saw Dai Yuan, they all showed very complex expressions. Some were filled with dread, some were frightened, some were sympathetic, and so on. What's more, almost every colored glass sect disciple recognized Dai Yuan. This made Yang Kai very concerned. After all, according to Dai Yuan's personality, she rarely interacted with others, yet her name was so resounding in colored glass sect. Inferring from the expressions of these people, Yang Kai secretly felt that Dai Yuan had some kind of story in colored glass sect. Following Dai Yuan, Yang Kai flew through the Grand Crystal Mountain range for about half an hour before the three of them arrived at a mountain peak in the distance. Seeing this 1,000-meter-tall mountain peak in the distance, Dai Yuan's tense expression finally relaxed, as if she had just returned home. Enthusiastically pointing to the mountain peak, she introduced it to Yang Kai. That is the 1,000 Illusion Peak I live in. It's a simple and crude place, so I hope junior brother Yang and sister Yang Yang don't mind. Sister Dai Yuan is too polite. Yang Kai laughed and flew towards the mountain peak with her. Before arriving at the peak, Yang Kai swept the area with his divine sense and was surprised to find that there was no one here. It seemed that Dai Yuan was the only one living in this 1,000 Illusion Peak, not even a single maidservant. Not long after, the three of them landed on a plank road halfway up 1,000 Illusion Peak. This plank road was extremely narrow, allowing only one person to pass through at a time. Moreover, it was built close to the mountain wall and looked very unstable. As one walked on it, the plank road swayed slightly, as if it could collapse at any time. Of course, Yang Kai and Yang Yang didn't care about this and simply enjoyed the scenery as they walked. It had to be said that although this 1,000 Illusion Peak was located in a remote location, the scenery was indeed quite good. Everywhere, there were birds chirping, flowers blooming, and the temperature was moderate. On top of that, the world energy here wasn't thin, even slightly better than Dragon Cave Mountain. If such a place could only be considered above average in colored glass sect, what kind of scenery would the best mountain peak be like? Yang Kai also remembered the ancient sect ruins in the fourth layer of the Liuyang sand field. Presumably, the world energy there would be even richer, right? The plank road wasn't long and after a short while, the three of them arrived at the end of the road. At the end of the road was a stone wall. This stone wall was smooth without the slightest bump, as if it had been carved open by some kind of sharp weapon. Arriving here, Dai Yuan stood still. Yang Kai looked around suspiciously. Yang Yang, on the other hand, seemed to notice something and whispered, "There is a spirit array here that opens the stone wall and allows us to enter. It's quite exquisite and seems to have been created by some kind of spirit array grandmaster." Yang Yang didn't deliberately lower her voice when she spoke, so Dai Yuan turned around and smiled. Sister Yang Yang seems to be very proficient in spirit arrays. If you don't mind, feel free to study them. In any case, no one usually comes to my 1,000 Illusion Peak, so they won't disturb you. Seeing that Yang Yang had taken the initiative to speak twice along the way, both times it was related to spirit arrays, so Dai Yuan naturally understood that she was interested in them. So, Dai Yuan immediately expressed goodwill to Yang Yang and sold a favor to Yang Kai. Yang Yang didn't comment nor answer, but Dai Yuan didn't show the slightest embarrassment. Suddenly, a jade pendant appeared in her hand, and after pouring her Saint Chi into it, she tossed it forward. A strange scene appeared. The jade pendant transformed into a ray of green light that shot into the smooth stone wall and disappeared. Soon after, a soft buzzing sound was emitted. A stone platform appeared in front of the smooth stone wall. Behind the stone platform was a tunnel that led to the interior of the mountain. Fluorescent light flickered within the tunnel, making it not appear dark at all. Junior brother Yang, sister Yang, please come in. Dai Yuan smiled slightly before leaping up and landing on the stone platform. Seeing this, Yang Kai also jumped up and looked into the depths of the corridor, secretly wondering if he should ask Yang to arrange a similar spirit array, but after thinking about it for a moment, he decided it was unnecessary and shook his head. Just as Dai Yuan was about to lead Yang Kai and Yang into the mountainous region, her figure suddenly paused and she turned her head to look towards the distant sky. Soon, her face became cold and gloomy as a look of displeasure filled her face. Seeing this, Yang Kai also followed her gaze and saw a blue streak of light rapidly approaching them. It was obvious that someone was flying towards them on a star shuttle. Yang Kai's divine sense was amazing, so after a brief investigation, he was able to determine who the owner of this star shuttle was, causing a strange expression to appear on his face. Junior brother Yang, sister Yang, please wait a moment, someone has come to find me. Dai Yuan smiled reluctantly and stood in place, waiting quietly. A moment later, the azure streak of light arrived directly in front of the stone platform. The person standing atop the star shuttle laughed before saying anything, her voice like a sweet silver bell. This woman was also an outstanding beauty with a graceful figure and a pair of enchanting eyes that seemed capable of sucking in one's soul, exuding an infinite charm. Coupled with her pleasant laughter, it was truly a sight to behold, causing one's eyes to light up involuntarily. Yin Su Dai. The person who had suddenly appeared here turned out to be the most famous disciple of colored glass sect, Yin Su Dai. Yang Kai had met this woman several times so naturally recognized her. Moreover, judging from Liu Yang's trip to the desert, it seemed that she and Dai Yuan were not on good terms. Yang Kai didn't know why she had come here now. Moreover, her timing was a bit too coincidental. Dai Yuan had just returned to Thousand Illusion Peak when Yin Su Dai had rushed over. Obviously she had received some kind of news. Yin Su Dai's beautiful eyes flickered, as if there were thousands of words that she wanted to say, a look that was enough to drive any man crazy. Her eyes swept over Yang Kai for a moment before immediately turning to Dai Yuan and saying, "Senior sister, you're back?" Dai Yuan didn't give her any good looks though, still wearing a sullen expression as she asked, "Why are you here? Why can't I come?" Yin Su Dai covered her mouth and giggled, although this is Thousand Illusion Peak, it is also the sect's property. As the most outstanding core disciple of this generation of the sect, with the exception of a few restricted areas, I can naturally go anywhere. Moreover, when junior sister heard that senior sister had returned, junior sister immediately ran over to greet you, fearing that junior sister would be unhappy. Could it be that senior sister wants to blame junior sister? As she spoke, an extremely aggrieved expression appeared on her face. It really made people feel pity for her and their hearts ache. It was as if even if she had done something extremely wrong, it was difficult and even more unbearable to hold her accountable. Chapter 1271. Bewitching Technique. A strange light flashed across Yang Kai's eyes. This was the first time he had learned that Yin Su Dai was actually using a bewitching technique, and one that seemed to be quite proficient in. No wonder every time he saw her, she would always exude an infinite charm. It turned out that this woman was actually using a bewitching technique. Hearing Yin Su Dai say this, Dai Yuan's pretty face sank as she shouted, "Did you have someone monitor me?" Yin Su Dai brushed her hair carelessly and chuckled, "Senior sister, what are you saying? Junior sister is simply concerned about senior sister. Last time, senior sister left without saying goodbye and no one knew where she had gone. Even honored master didn't know, so junior sister has been keeping an eye out for any news about senior sister. Just now, I heard a message saying that senior sister has returned safely. This is good news. Not only is junior sister happy, but honored master is also very happy and wants to see you." Honored master. A complicated look flashed across Dai Yuan's face, as if she was no longer in the mood to argue with Yin Su Dai, instead saying, Why didn't you stay on 100 Butterfly Peak and instead came here to talk about this? Then what else do you want me to say? Yin Su-dai's expression became gloomy, but suddenly her beautiful eyes lit up, as if she had thought of something. Right, there is another good thing I want to share with senior sister. Honored Master is currently asking Grandmaster Xiao to refine an origin condensing pill, and although 2 furnaces have already been ruined, Grandmaster Xiao said that the next one should be 80% successful. When that time comes, junior sister may enter retreat to break through to the origin returning realm and won't have time to visit senior sister. If senior sister is feeling lonely, how about junior sister arrange for a few maids to accompany you? Yin Su-dai smiled innocently, as if she was really thinking about Dai Yuan, her sisterly sentiments clearly showing. However, anyone could hear the slight smugness in her words. An origin condensing pill. Dai Yuan nodded indifferently. Then I must congratulate junior sister. This is all thanks to senior sister finding a few stalks of emerald silk grass in Liu Yang's desert, otherwise it would have been impossible to refine an origin condensing pill. Junior sister was not so lucky and was unable to find even a single stalk of emerald silk grass. Yin Su-dai shook her head and sighed, seemingly very upset. A sneer appeared on Dai Yuan's face, not caring that the emerald silk grass she had worked so hard to find had been used on Yin Su-dai, instead saying, junior sister senior. If there's nothing else, junior sister, please return. Since you're preparing to break through to the origin returning stage, you naturally need to make some preparations. Otherwise, if you fail, you will have let down master's efforts. Junior senior sister, senior say a senior like senior to senior sister s senior, Su senior. Senior sister has a guest to entertain, so she won't accompany you. Dai Yuan ignored the ugly look on Yin Su-dai's face and ordered her to leave. However, Yin Su-dai had no intention of leaving at all. Seeing that her attempts to bully Dai Yuan had no effect, her beautiful eyes narrowed as she stared at young Kai and said with a smile, "This little brother looks very familiar, have we met somewhere before?" Young Kai's expression froze. He had not expected that he would be involved in the internal dispute between this senior sister and junior sister as soon as he arrived at Colored Glass Sect, but he didn't care and simply grinned. Senior sister Yin and I have indeed met a few times, but this one has admired senior sister Yin for a long time. It's just that this one is not well known, so senior sister Yin may not have noticed. When Yin Su-dai heard this, a bright smile bloomed on her face as she giggled, very satisfied with young Kai's flattery. Dai Yuan, on the other hand, frowned as she shot a strange look towards young Kai. As for young Yoon, he just stood in place, not saying anything or doing anything, as if he didn't exist. I remember now. You should be with that Wei Guchang. How come you also know senior sister? Yin Su-dai's voice suddenly became soft. Others who heard this didn't think there was anything wrong with it, but young Kai suddenly felt his blood flow accelerate and a soft whisper seemed to reach his ears, as if an invisible hand was stroking his cheeks, causing him to feel extremely comfortable. I met her in Liu Yang's desert. Young Kai nodded and replied cooperatively. So that's how it is, but since senior sister was able to invite you back as a guest, it seems your relationship with senior sister isn't shallow. Yin Su-dai said in a roundabout manner, but before young Kai could answer, she smiled again, her eyes flashing a strange light, exuding a strange charm that tugged at young Kai's heartstrings as she said, "If little brother doesn't mind, why don't you come visit my 100 Butterfly Peak sometime? Although my 100 Butterfly Peak isn't close to here, it has its own unique charm, so I'm sure you won't be disappointed." Young Kai's eyes suddenly glazed over as his face flushed abnormally, seemingly unconsciously nodding, Good, this one couldn't ask for more." As he spoke, saliva seemed to be dripping from the corners of his mouth as a disgusting look of lust appeared on his face. "Yin Su-dai!" Dai Yuan suddenly shouted, knowing that young Kai should have been affected by her junior sister's beguiling technique. Pushing her Saint Chi madly, she wore a menacing look on her face, as if she would attack Yin Su-dai if she didn't withdraw her beguiling technique. "What's the matter?" Yin Su-dai looked at Dai Yuan innocently, her incorporeal charm surging towards young Kai even more fiercely. At that moment, young Kai's nostrils spurted out 2 hot blasts and he seemed to involuntarily rush forward, inexplicably arriving in front of Yin Su-dai. Immediately, under the dumbfounded gazes of Yin Su-dai and Dai Yuan, Yang Kai grabbed both of Yin Su-dai's jade hands. For a moment, fiercely. It was as if Yang Kai had grasped the most important thing in his life and was unwilling to let go again. At the same time, his eyes flashed a terrifying fiery light and the temperature of his body rose significantly. Yin Su-dai was stunned on the spot while Dai Yuan was also dumbfounded. The moment Yang Kai rushed over, whether it was Dai Yuan or Yin Su-dai, both of them wanted to stop him, but neither of them knew why. By the time the two women recovered, Yang Kai had already grabbed both of Yin Su-dai's hands. Feeling the sharp pain in her hands and seeing the crazed look in the eyes of this ugly man in front of her, Yin Su-dai was both shocked and angered, pushing her Saint Chi fiercely, but in the next moment, she calmed down, her eyes becoming watery as she turned to Yang Kai and said, "You hurt me, ah?" Yang Kai was startled, a look of guilt filling his face, but his two big hands were still firmly holding on to Yin Su-dai. No matter how hard she tried to pull, she was unable to break free. While feeling her delicate and soft hands, Yang Kai blushed and said, "It doesn't hurt, I have time now, how about we go to 100 Butterfly Peak now? In any case, your senior sister has nothing to do here, so there's no need to stay." "Ha ha." Yin Su-dai laughed dryly. Although she couldn't wait to slap Yang Kai away, she had no choice but to suppress the anger in her heart. The inexplicable light in her eyes became faster and faster as she stared directly into Yang Kai's eyes. "Didn't you just invite me to come with you? What are you waiting for?" Yang Kai began to urge her, seemingly impatient to return to 100 Butterfly Peak with her. Seeing this, Yin Su-dai's expression changed and she was no longer willing to delay, pushing her Saint Chi to break free from Yang Kai's grasp. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yin Su-dai's figure flickered and reappeared a few dozen meters away, hiding her two small hands in her sleeves, making it impossible to see what they were like, but it was obvious that after being seduced by Yang Kai for a while, Yin Su-dai's expression was definitely not pleasant. Staring coldly at Yang Kai, who seemed to still be immersed in her seduction technique, Yin Su-dai's expression became gloomy. However, a figure flashed and Dai Yuan appeared in front of Yang Kai, coldly saying, "Junior sister, please return." Yin Su-dai grit her teeth and took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling in an exaggerated manner, showing off her enchanting curves as she snorted, "Senior sister, don't forget to pay respects to honored master, she has always been thinking about you. Junior sister will take her leave now." Saying so, Yin Su-dai's phoenix eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed across them as she stared at Yang Kai, as if she wanted to carve his appearance into the depths of her soul, stomped her foot, and flew off on her star shuttle. After she was 10 kilometers away from Thousand Illusion Peak, Yin Su-dai took her hands out of her sleeves and examined them under her eyelids, her beautiful face going pale with anger. Her flawless jade-like hands were now covered in bruises. Yin Su-dai didn't know where that smelly man had obtained such brute strength, nor did he understand the concept of having tender feelings for the fairer sex. This time, she had gone for wool and come home shorn, causing Yin Su-dai's lungs to explode. Secretly hating Yang Kai in her heart, she planned to find an opportunity to teach him a lesson. On the stone platform of Thousand Illusion Peak, a group of 3 stood there. Yang Inflammation and Dai Yuan stared at Yang Kai's back while Yang Kai stared in the direction Yin Su-dai disappeared, a look of regret filling his face. After a while, Yang Kai sighed and slowly shook his head. Turning around, he saw the 2 women staring at him and asked in amazement, "What's wrong? Is there something on my face? You didn't fall for her seduction technique?" If Dai Yuan still couldn't tell, she would have wasted her many years of experience. At this moment, Yang Kai's demeanor was completely different from before and his eyes were clear and bright. Seduction technique? Yang Kai's mouth curled into a sneer, she used it on the wrong person. Then why did you? Dai Yuan's eyes flashed a complicated light as she shook her head and laughed, "Your courage is really big, actually taking advantage of her. If she had seen through it on the spot, she definitely wouldn't have let you off." "Didn't she not see through it?" Yang Kai chuckled. "Thank you." Dai Yuan suddenly showed a look of gratitude and sincerely thanked him. She knew that if it weren't for Yang Kai not being able to stand watching Yin Su-dai humiliate her, he wouldn't have done such a thing. Yang Kai waved his hand and snorted. No need, she attacked me first, I was just fighting back. The grievances of other senior sisters, Yang Kai was too lazy to intervene. This time, his main purpose for coming here was to obtain 1,000 illusion-colored glass mountain. Helping Dai Yuan was just a pretense, but Yin Su Dai had recklessly used her seduction technique on him. If this weren't colored glass sect, Yang Kai wouldn't have let her off so easily. Chapter 1272. Dai Yuan smiled and asked meaningfully, "How does it feel?" Yang Kai's face blushed as he chuckled, not bad at all. Worthy of being one of Shadowed Star's famous beauties, your skin is delicate and well maintained." Seeing Yang Kai really talk about this, Dai Yuan couldn't bear it anymore and snorted lightly before no longer talking about it, leading Yang Kai and Yang Inflammation into the mountain corridor. After entering the corridor, Dai Yuan placed her hand on the stone wall and circulated her Saint Qi, summoning the jade pendant that had flown in before. Immediately after, the hole in the stone wall closed silently. "Please follow me," Dai Yuan beckoned from the front before leading Yang Kai and Yang Inflammation through the mountain corridor. After walking for about 1,000 meters, a huge cave suddenly appeared. It covered an area of about 1,000 meters and seemed to have been hollowed out from the inside of Thousand Illusion Peak. The inside of this cave was extremely empty, without the slightest trace of man-made carvings. Yang Kai looked around and was surprised to find that this cave was actually naturally formed, not artificially excavated. Above the cave, there were several thick and thin dark red pillars hanging upside down, like sharp cones that could fall down at any moment, making for an extremely dangerous sight. At the bottom of the cast cave, there were also many lava pillars, making the entire cast cave look like a messy stone forest, confusing and complicated. A natural spirit array. After Yang Yang swept her eyes over these molten pillars, she suddenly let out a soft cry, her beautiful eyes lighting up as she stood there, not wanting to leave. Sure enough, I can't hide from Sister Yang Inflammation's eyes. Dai Yuan also stopped and turned back to look at Yang Inflammation with some admiration before explaining, there is indeed a natural spirit array in this cave on Thousand Illusion Peak, but it only has a somewhat hallucinatory effect and doesn't have much power." Yang Inflammation continued to look around for a while before asking, "Did someone change the natural spirit array here?" It was one of the people who used to live on Thousand Illusion Peak." Dai Yuan thought of something and her eyes dimmed slightly, but she quickly recovered and continued, "That person had some understanding of spirit arrays, so they changed the natural spirit array here so that it not only has a hallucinatory effect but also has the ability to repel enemies. Can I go in and take a look?" Yang Inflammation asked, seemingly very interested in this natural spirit array. "Nonsense." Yang Kai scolded Yang Inflammation with a straight face. No matter what, this was Dai Yuan's secluded home, so how could a spirit array set up outside be casually inspected? This could easily become a taboo. Dai Yuan smiled faintly and said, "Junior brother Yang, there is no need to say that. Since Sister Yang Inflammation has dabbled in spirit arrays, it is normal for her to be interested. After all, natural spirit arrays are quite rare and difficult to create. If Sister Yang Inflammation wants to enter, of course you can, but I am not very proficient in this spirit array. Since the senior who used to live here passed away, although I have taken over this spirit array, I am unable to do anything about it. All I know is that there is a safe way in and out. If Sister Yang Inflammation can crack this spirit array, explore its essence, and teach it to me, Dai Yuan will be grateful to Sister Yang Inflammation." "So that's how it is." Yang Kai's face relaxed slightly. Since Dai Yuan intended to borrow the power of Yang Inflammation, he could no longer stop her, simply turning to Yang Inflammation and asking, "Can I?" Yang Inflammation curled her lips but did not answer, instead wrapping herself in her black robe and disappearing into the lava pillars. Yang Kai smiled bitterly, knowing that he had underestimated Yang Inflammation's ability, which made him very angry. Dai Yuan, on the other hand, saw Yang Inflammation's confident performance and her eyes lit up as she secretly looked forward to it. "Let's go, don't worry about her. In any case, this place is already your territory, she will naturally come out after studying it." Yang Kai smiled helplessly at Dai Yuan. "Good, Dai Yuan naturally had no objections and continued to lead Yang Kai through the lava pillars. Not long after, the two of them passed through the cave and entered another mountain tunnel. After walking for a short distance, they arrived at a stone room. As soon as he entered this stone room, Yang Kai's expression shook. He found that there were many fragrances of pills and herbs here, and inside the stone room, there were 5 or 6 large and small alchemy furnaces. Only then did he remember that Dai Yuan was also an alchemist. Wei Guchang had mentioned this before in Liu Yang Sand Field. The reason why Dai Yuan knew so much about the red candle fruit was because she was an alchemist. However, since she had requested this from him, her alchemy level shouldn't be too high. Yang Kai was well aware of this, but he didn't point it out. Junior brother Yang must be joking. I'm afraid Dai Yuan's place can't even enter junior brother's eyes, Dai Yuan said with a smile. You're too kind. Young lady has a completely different world here. It's much better than Dragon Cave Mountain, Yang Kai laughed. Junior brother Yang. Dai Yuan suddenly called out softly, staring straight at him with her beautiful eyes. Are there really Origin King grade alchemists in the outside world? Yang Kai glanced at her and suddenly discovered that many people on Shadowed Star seemed to be interested in the outside world. He had heard similar questions being asked more than once or twice. With a solemn expression, Yang Kai nodded and said, "Ien, there are indeed Origin King grade alchemists in the outside world. Although I have never seen one, I have heard of them. There are also Origin King grade artifact refiners and Origin King realm masters. There is also the Star Master Master." Star Master. Dai Yuan raised her brow, the legendary powerful cultivator who can refine a star's source and become its Star Master? Ien, but there should be very few such people. I heard that refining a star's source is extremely dangerous, and even Origin King realm masters do not dare attempt it easily, otherwise, their soul may be destroyed. Is that so? Dai Yuan smiled when she heard this and immediately said cheerfully, if there is an opportunity, Dai Yuan would like to consult junior brother Yang about the outside world. I hope junior brother Yang will not refuse. Good, when the time comes, this one will definitely tell you the truth. Yang Kai agreed readily. Although he didn't know much about the star field, he was still someone who had come from the outside world, so his understanding of Shadowed Star was much deeper than the people here, so it wasn't a problem for him to talk about these things. Dai Yuan didn't ask any more questions and instead arranged for Yang Kai to rest in a room next to the stone room before asking Yang Kai to rest for a few days while she went to pay her respects to her honored master. After all, when she left Colored Glass Sect last time, she didn't tell anyone, and just now Yin Su Dai had come to inform her that her honored master wanted to see her, so she naturally couldn't keep her honored master waiting. Yang Kai waved his hand and let her go. After a while, Dai Yuan left Thousand Illusion Peak and turned into a blue streak of light, disappearing into the Grand Crystal Mountain Range. After Dai Yuan left, Yang Kai opened his eyes from meditation, a light flashing across them as a sly look appeared on his face. With a wave of his hand, a figure appeared in front of him. It was the stone mongoose, standing there and looking at Yang Kai innocently, seemingly waiting for his instructions. Do you know what you're going to do? Yang Kai asked. The stone mongoose tilted its head and thought for a moment before nodding. Good, I'll tell you the location. Remember, if there's any danger or if you're discovered, return immediately and don't alarm anyone. Yang Kai carefully exhorted before stretching out his finger and touching the stone mongoose's forehead. A green light appeared on his fingertip and entered the stone mongoose's head. This green light contained a strand of Yang Kai's divine sense and clearly contained the location of Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain. Since Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain was the supreme treasure of Colored Glass Sect, the spirit arrays protecting it would definitely be extremely powerful. Although Yang Kai was confident in the stone mongoose's safety, there was always a possibility, which was why he had warned it so seriously. He didn't want to lose a partner like the stone mongoose just because he stole a bit of Thousand Illusion colored glass. Since the stone mongoose was born, it had always been conscientious and diligent, a role model for hardworking people. Where else could he find such a good assistant? After the green light containing Yang Kai's divine sense entered the stone mongoose's head, it quickly disappeared. The stone mongoose stood in place in a daze, seemingly digesting the information contained in the divine sense. After a while, its eyes rolled around and it silently shook its body, causing a small hole to appear in the ground and the stone mongoose to disappear. By the time young Kai noticed it, it was already 1,000 meters underground, and after pausing for a moment, it flew off in the direction of the 1,000 illusion-colored glass mountain at a high speed. The stone mongoose was born with a special ability, so the earth could not hinder its movements. After releasing the stone mongoose, young Kai immediately stretched out his hand and smoothed out the small hole in the ground, making it impossible to see anything wrong with it from the outside. Only then did he return to meditating. Speaking of which, young Kai still didn't know why Dai Yuan had invited him here, but with Dai Yuan's personality, she probably wouldn't ask him to do anything too difficult. If there really was something difficult, young Kai could refuse. In any case, his main purpose for coming here had been achieved. All he needed to do now was wait for the stone mongoose to return. After understanding this, young Kai immediately settled down. For 3 days, young Kai didn't see any trace of Dai Yuan. On the other hand, young Inflammation appeared like a ghost, her beautiful eyes flashing with excitement, seemingly having gained a lot from studying the natural spirit array outside. Young Kai didn't ask too much because even if he did, he wouldn't understand, so he simply ignored her. Dai Yuan still hadn't returned, so young Inflammation went to a nearby room to rest. After waiting for another 2 days in 1,000 Illusion Peak, young Kai suddenly saw Dai Yuan appear. However, what made young Kai feel strange was that Dai Yuan seemed to be very tired, her expression somewhat sluggish, and her eyes were red and swollen, obviously the result of crying. Even though she was forcing herself to smile, it was impossible to erase the sadness hidden in her brow. Young Kai didn't know what had happened to her that caused her to become like this, but he could imagine that it had something to do with her honored master. After all, Dai Yuan had gone to see her honored master and returned 5 days later, yet she had undergone such a drastic change. Chapter 1273. After Dai Yuan returned, the first thing she did was visit young Inflammation, and after receiving a token, her mood immediately improved. This was because young Inflammation had not only cracked the natural spirit array outside her secluded home but had also made some changes to it, making it more complete and usable. Not only had its power increased by 30%, but it had also gained several new transformations. This made Dai Yuan very happy, but at the same time, she was secretly surprised by young Inflammation's skill with the spirit array. After this incident, the relationship between her and young Inflammation seemed to have become much more harmonious, to the point where they even called each other sisters. This made young Kai very confused. He only felt that a woman's heart was like a needle in the sea, unpredictable and unpredictable. When the two of them were hurrying on their way, they were like taciturn gourds, not speaking for a month, but now, just because of a spirit array, they were incomparably intimate. Men were not like this. After she returned, young Kai naturally began to ask her what she needed his help with, but Dai Yuan still hesitated and only asked young Kai to wait a few more days while she made some preparations. When the time came, she would naturally tell him the truth. Hearing her say this, young Kai no longer forced her and simply waited quietly. A few days later, young Kai was meditating inside his stone room, cultivating his demon blood threads while pouring his Saint Qi into the artifact refining furnace in front of him. Inside this artifact refining furnace, a crimson firebird was tumbling about, constantly spraying out pure and rich fire energy from its beak to burn the dragon bone and dragon bead inside the artifact refining furnace. Although it took a long time to refine the dragon bone and dragon bead, as long as young Kai had time, he would actively stimulate the power of the artifact refining furnace to speed up the refining process. He was looking forward to seeing what would happen after the dragon bone and dragon bead were refined. Just as he was urging his Saint Qi, a knock suddenly came from outside. Young Kai raised his eyes, and after pouring his Saint Qi into the artifact refining furnace again, he took a deep breath and calmed his Saint Qi. A moment later, he stretched out his hand and summoned the artifact refining furnace back into his body before standing up, walking over to the stone door, and opening it. Dai Yuan simply stood there, but for some reason, she seemed to be a little worried about her gains and losses. When she felt a wave of heat in the room, she looked at young Kai in surprise, instinctively thinking that young Kai was refining pills, but there was no pill or medicinal fragrance in the air, which made her feel a little strange. Not caring about this, Dai Yuan asked softly, "Can I come in?" Yang Kai nodded, stepped aside, and waited for Dai Yuan to enter before closing the door and sitting down on a stone bench in the room, taking the initiative to ask, "Is everything ready?" "Yen." Dai Yuan bit her red lips lightly and nodded lightly. "Then let's begin." Yang Kai smiled lightly, "But before that, shouldn't Sister Dai Yuan tell me what you want me to help you with and how I should do it?" "I'm here to tell you this." Dai Yuan glanced over at him, her eyes watery and her cheeks blushing a deep shade of red. This made Yang Kai quite surprised, wondering what kind of embarrassing matter Dai Yuan was going to say that would cause her to show such a reaction. Dai Yuan sat there, seemingly a little restless, her two small hands unconsciously twisting together. After a long silence, she grit her teeth and said, "Actually, I asked junior brother Yang to come here to detoxify my poison." "Detoxify?" Yang Kai raised his brow, a look of surprise appearing on his face. "Sister Dai Yuan is poisoned? I really can't tell what kind of poison Sister Dai Yuan is suffering from, but if it is convenient, please tell me, perhaps I will know how to refine that detoxification pill." "There is no detoxification pill for my poison." Dai Yuan heard this and shook her head with a wry smile. "Oh." Yang Kai suddenly became interested. When Dai Yuan had invited him to Dragon Cave Mountain, she had indeed said that her request was related to alchemy, and now that she was talking about detoxification, that was indeed the case. However, Dai Yuan saying that there was no detoxification pill for her poison meant that this poison was definitely extraordinary, so Yang Kai naturally paid some attention to it. Perhaps it was because he was an alchemist, but as long as it was related to herbs and pills, Yang Kai wanted to learn more about them. "What I'm suffering from is thousand illusion-colored glass." Dai Yuan's words were shocking, her expression serious, without the slightest hint of a joke. "Thousand illusion-colored glass." Yang Kai was stunned. "Isn't thousand illusion-colored glass your noble sect's supreme treasure? Furthermore, I've heard that it's a peculiar refining material that doesn't possess any toxicity. How did you get poisoned by this thing, and how did you get infected?" Yang Kai was extremely curious because what Dai Yuan was saying was simply too incredible. Although he didn't know much about thousand illusion-colored glass, he knew that this artifact refining material wasn't poisonous. Thousand illusion-colored glass really isn't poisonous. Dai Yuan smiled bitterly after hearing this, reaching out and brushing her hair behind her ear as she asked in a low voice, "But what if I swallowed it raw?" Yang Kai's expression changed slightly as he stared straight at Dai Yuan, his eyes narrowing. "Junior brother Yang doesn't need to doubt me. I really did swallow thousand illusion-colored glass raw and have been doing so for many years now. Ever since I entered the Saint Realm, I have been taking it." Dai Yuan smiled lightly. How could such a thing happen? Yang Kai was dumbfounded. This woman had actually swallowed an artifact refining material. Wasn't that the same as courting death? Who in their right mind would take such a thing? Even if she didn't want to live, she wouldn't do such a thing. "Naturally, there is a reason why I took it." Dai Yuan seemed to know that Yang Kai would have such a reaction, so she wasn't surprised at all, because the secret art I cultivate is called the Thousand Illusion-Colored Glass Art. This secret art was created by my Colored Glass sect's ancestral founder based on Colored Glass Mountain. Almost every generation of Colored Glass sect's disciple must cultivate this secret art, and this generation's person is me. In order to cultivate this secret art, one must take thousand illusion-colored glass. Heh, such a strange secret art, it doesn't seem to be anything good. Yang Kai laughed sarcastically. "Yen, but for the sect, this secret art is indispensable." Thousand Illusion Peak has always been used as a residence for those who cultivate this secret art, which is why it has such a name. The previous person who lived here also cultivated this secret art? Yang Kai was surprised. "Yen. On top of that, I grew up with her and she taught me this secret art. She can be considered my true master." "And her end?" Yang Kai's mouth curled into a sneer. She shouldn't have had a good ending, right? It seemed that because of Yang Kai's question, Dai Yuan seemed to recall something and her face immediately dimmed. Seeing this, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. Just as he was thinking about how to comfort her, Dai Yuan suddenly smiled and said, "That's her fate. Since she chose this path, she shouldn't complain." However, after cultivating this secret art, before reaching the minor accomplishment stage, she won't be able to use the full power of this secret art. Otherwise, the poison will gradually deepen and eventually become impossible to expel. On top of that, the road to advancement is fraught with dangers. This was the experience of the previous person who sacrificed her life. If I want to break through to the origin returning realm, I must rely on junior brother Yang's strength to resolve the colored glass poison that has accumulated in my body over the years. Otherwise, I will die without a doubt. Yang Kai nodded lightly, understanding why Dai Yuan had come all the way to Dragon Cave Mountain to beg him for help. However, Dai Yuan had said that before reaching the minor accomplishment stage, she wouldn't be able to use the full power of this secret art. It seemed that the last time he saw Dai Yuan fight, she hadn't used her full strength. Suddenly, Yang Kai seemed to think of something and looked at Dai Yuan in surprise. "The thousand illusion-colored glass art you cultivate wouldn't be related to the collection of thousand illusion-colored glass, right? Colored glass sect needed someone to cultivate such a dangerous secret art in every generation, so unless it was for some particularly important reason, they certainly wouldn't do such a thing." For the most important reason for colored glass sect, Yang Kai could only associate it with the collection of thousand illusion-colored glass. But after hearing Yang Kai's question, Dai Yuan's complexion changed and she quickly waved her hand. "Junior brother Yang, you can't say that." "Ah, am I right?" Yang Kai's expression became strange. Dai Yuan smiled bitterly but didn't deny it, nodding. "Yen, I cultivate the thousand illusion-colored glass art precisely because I need to collect thousand illusion-colored glass. I won't hide it from junior brother Yang. Since the last senior who lived here fell, no one in the sect has been able to collect thousand illusion-colored glass, and I can only do so after reaching the origin returning realm. This is one of the sect's biggest secrets. You can only speak of it in front of me, but you can't tell anyone else, otherwise, you will definitely be in trouble." "I know." Yang Kai nodded quickly. His unintentional words had actually exposed the sect's secret, causing Yang Kai to break out in a cold sweat. However, since Dai Yuan was so important to colored glass sect, why was she being neglected here? Shouldn't she be provided with the best cultivation resources, the best cultivation environment, and the best guidance from a senior? It seemed that there were some other secrets he didn't know about. Yang Kai secretly guessed. The last senior who lived here was also a genius. She summarized the experiences and performances of many seniors who cultivated the thousand illusion-colored glass art and finally came up with a very safe way to resolve colored glass poison. Once it was successful, I would no longer need to fear colored glass poison. I am deeply grateful to her for her help, but unfortunately, by the time she came up with this method, the poison had already penetrated her body and she was unable to resolve it herself, Dai Yuan explained with a gloomy expression. "Is this method useful to me?" Yang Kai asked. "Yen, it requires the assistance of an origin-grade alchemist, and this alchemist must also be skilled and have perfect control over the fusion of various medicinal efficacies. From what I can see, the pills junior brother Yang has refined before are all the best of the best, a few of them even nearly forming pill veins. I think this requirement is absolutely not a problem for you." Chapter 1274. Although he had received Dai Yuan's praise, Yang Kai was still somewhat puzzled. Although his control of the medicinal efficacies was quite good, the 5 origin-grade alchemists from Medicine King's Valley weren't bad either. After all, they were all quite old, so why had Dai Yuan asked him for help instead of Medicine Pill Sect's alchemists? There must be some unknown reason for this. Yang Kai wasn't in a hurry to ask because he knew Dai Yuan would definitely tell him later. Seeing Yang Kai listening attentively, Dai Yuan smiled and continued, "If it was just finding such an alchemist, it wouldn't have been difficult. The difficult part would have been gathering the materials needed for the detoxification method." "Oh, what kind of materials would you need to gather?" Yang Kai asked. "There are many materials, but after years of searching by the previous senior who lived here, he managed to gather 90% of them. Even the yin pond, which was the most difficult to find, was found by that senior, and after expending a great deal of effort, he was able to move it back to Thousand Illusion Peak. The reason I asked junior brother Yang to come with me is because this yin pond cannot be taken away. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked you to work so hard. Yang Kai nodded lightly, finally understanding why Dai Yuan insisted that he come with her to Colored Glass Sect. However, yin ponds were extremely rare and would only appear in places with dense yin qi and ghost qi. Although they were useless to most cultivators, for those who cultivated yin and evil secret arts, yin ponds were their favorite treasures because the pure yin qi in them was enough to rapidly increase the strength of any cultivator who cultivated such a secret art. Yang Kai had only heard about them and had never had a chance to see one with his own eyes. Because Thousand Illusion colored glass is not restrained by the 5 elements. So, if one wants to expel the colored glass poison, they must have something like a yin pond. Then, condensing the medicinal efficacies of countless herbs, fusing them into the yin pond's water, and using the yin pond's water as a guide, they will have a chance to expel the colored glass poison, Dai Yuan explained softly. Yang Kai nodded as he listened. With his alchemy skills and knowledge, although he didn't understand the inner workings of this method, it should be correct. After thinking about it for a moment, Yang Kai asked, since that senior was able to find a yin pond, why didn't she take it? She even moved it back to Thousand Illusion Peak. So why didn't she detoxify it in the end? She still lacks one last thing. Dai Yuan smiled bitterly. What she lacks is a blood-invigorating mushroom. Blood-invigorating mushroom? Yang Kai's spirit shook. The blood-invigorating mushroom, the one that can be used to refine the blood mushroom pill? Hearing this, Yang Kai's face is. Yang Kai, of course. Yes. The invigorating mushroom, Dai Yuan gently nodding. With a flip of her hand, an exquisite wooden box suddenly appeared in her palm. She then opened the wooden box. Opening it, she took out a small piece of mushroom the size of a baby's fist. Not only did it look strange, but it was also red in color. Upon closer inspection, it seemed as if there was blood flowing through it, but it also exuded a pungent smell. Yang Kai took it with a dignified expression, gently stroking it with his hand, carefully examining it for a while before nodding. Yes, this is a blood-invigorating mushroom. Its medicinal age is at least 3,000 years, and it seems to have been picked not long ago. Did you obtain this from Liu Yang Sandfield? Sure enough, I couldn't hide it from junior brother Yang. Dai Yuan smiled faintly. Dai Yuan smiled lightly. It was also thanks to junior brother Yang's blessing that this blood-invigorating mushroom was a harvest I obtained in the 4th layer of Liu Yang Sandfield. Yang Kai's expression changed as he thought to himself, Dai Yuan's luck really wasn't bad. In the 4th layer, the number of precious treasures was extremely low. Yang Kai had only managed to obtain a few strings of fine purple jade fruit, but Dai Yuan was actually able to find a blood-invigorating mushroom. What's more, this was exactly what she desperately needed. It seemed that after he left, Dai Yuan had spent a lot of effort searching for this blood-invigorating mushroom, and the reason she wanted to follow him to the 4th layer was probably because she wanted to find this blood-invigorating mushroom. Finally, she was able to achieve her goal. What do you want to do with this blood-invigorating mushroom? Yang Kai closed the lid of the box and handed it back to her before asking. Dai Yuan fell silent, gently rubbing the wooden box in her hand a few times before sighing softly. I won't hide it from junior brother Yang. Although this method of detoxification was created and left behind by the previous senior who lived here, she wasn't 100% certain it would succeed because the Thousand Illusion colored glass poison has already penetrated deep into my body, so if I were to try to expel it, it would inevitably cause me to lose a great deal of vitality. It is not impossible for me to die, but this blood-invigorating mushroom is the only way to preserve that slim chance of survival. Yang Kai frowned. If that's the case, wouldn't it be better to refine it into a blood mushroom pill? Blood mushroom pill? Dai Yuan smiled bitterly. Since junior brother Yang is an alchemist, it's not that you don't understand the grade of the blood mushroom pill. It is an origin-grade high-rank pill, not something the alchemists of Shadowed Star can refine. If this were the outside world where junior brother Yang came from, this proposal would be a good one, but unfortunately. Or rather, are you an origin-grade high-rank alchemist? No. Yang Kai shook his head. He was now an origin-grade low-rank alchemist, but if he really put his mind to it and wasn't afraid of ruining the herbs, there was a chance he could refine an origin-grade mid-rank pill. As for an origin-grade high-rank pill, it was impossible for him to refine one, so after pondering for a moment, he said, "What I mean is, if you aren't in a hurry, you might as well wait a few days. Perhaps there will be a more reliable method in the future, or perhaps you can find someone to refine the blood mushroom pill." Yang Kai didn't dare say he would refine it himself. Although he felt that it wouldn't take him many years to become an origin-grade high-rank alchemist, he still couldn't make any guarantees at this time. "I can't wait." Dai Yuan shook her head bitterly. Dai Yuan smiled bitterly and shook her head. "If I could wait, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry to ask junior brother Yang for help." After cultivating the 1,000 illusion-colored glass art, depending on how much 1,000 illusion-colored glass one's body absorbs, one's cultivation will grow accordingly. At most, I can only delay it for half a year. After half a year, whether I am willing or not, I will have to break through to the origin returning realm. If I succeed, I will have a glimmer of hope, but if I fail, with my current cultivation, I won't be able to suppress the colored glass poison and will die. Although directly taking the blood-invigorating mushroom will greatly reduce its medicinal efficacies, which is a waste of heaven's precious treasures, this is all I can do for now. Is there no other way? Yang Kai frowned. No. Dai Yuan smiled gently. Many thanks for junior brother Yang's concern, but since I have decided to do this, I have already mentally prepared myself. Regardless of whether this time's detoxification is successful or not, at least I have tried my best. Compared to the previous senior who lived here and the previous elders who cultivated the 1,000 illusion-colored glass art, Dai Yuan will not complain. Yang Kai sighed softly and no longer tried to dissuade her, instead nodding and saying, "Since you've made up your mind, then so be it. If you need my help, I will do my best." Hearing this, Dai Yuan was overjoyed and thanked him gratefully. "Many thanks, junior brother Yang. Now, I will tell you how to help me detoxify. Listen carefully. Once the process begins, I may not have much energy to instruct you. Immediately, Dai Yuan began explaining the detoxification method and various other details. Of course, these methods and details were all thought up by the senior from Colored Glass sect and perfected during her lifetime, so Yang Kai didn't think there was anything wrong with them and instead felt a great deal of admiration towards this senior from Colored Glass sect. However, while explaining these details and methods, Dai Yuan's face blushed and her eyes became watery. Her voice was low and restless, and even though her appearance wasn't that great, the shyness and flirtatious look in her eyes only added to her charm. Yang Kai finally understood why Dai Yuan hadn't been willing to tell him the details before. It turned out that this detoxification method actually required some intimate physical contact. It was no wonder Dai Yuan's face was flushed red when she explained the detoxification method. Any woman facing a man and telling him when to condense the medicinal efficacies on certain parts of their body would have the same expression. After all, if they really did this, it was inevitable that some awkward situations would occur. Although Yang Kai had never met Grandmaster Xiao from Colored Glass sect, he was certain that the other party should be an old man, otherwise, Dai Yuan wouldn't have said it was inconvenient. Of the 5 grandmasters from Medicine Pill sect, 4 of them were also old men and only 1 was an old woman. Compared to facing these old men, Dai Yuan would definitely choose Yang Kai. Yang Kai was a heroic and extraordinary young man, so Dai Yuan's sense of rejection was slightly weaker. Of course, if she could, she would rather choose the old woman from Medicine Pill sect. After all, both of them were women, so there wasn't such a taboo. But she couldn't afford to pay such a big price. Yang Kai thought secretly, guessing the hesitation and scruples in Dai Yuan's heart. On top of that, she was an alchemist herself, so she was probably preparing for the detoxification. Unfortunately, she didn't have much time to mature in the alchemic way and was currently just a Saint King grade alchemist, so she wasn't of much use. Dai Yuan explained shyly, but Yang Kai remained indifferent, not showing any superfluous expression, simply listening attentively, not wanting to miss a single detail. Seeing Yang Kai's performance, Dai Yuan also gradually relaxed. There was a saying that doctors should not avoid suspicion, and her current relationship with Yang Kai was somewhat similar to that of a doctor and patient. Thinking so, Dai Yuan's expression gradually returned to normal. After spending the entire night explaining, Yang Kai would take the initiative to ask about some key issues, and Dai Yuan also knew that this was a matter of great importance, so she naturally explained it to him in detail. After an entire night, Dai Yuan finished her explanation, and Yang Kai also memorized the detoxification method in his heart, knowing what to do at what time. Junior brother Yang, have you memorized everything? Dai Yuan looked at him and asked. Although she hadn't rested all night, she didn't show the slightest signs of sleepiness and instead seemed to be in high spirits, as if she had reached the most important juncture in her life. Chapter 1275. I'll remember. Yang Kai nodded lightly, glancing at Dai Yuan thoughtfully for a moment before saying, your state of mind isn't very stable right now. How about this, you rest for 2 more days, then we'll begin. Although Dai Yuan couldn't wait to begin immediately, since Yang Kai had said so, she couldn't object. Nodding in agreement, she discussed a few more details with Yang Kai before leaving. After Dai Yuan left, Yang Kai sat down on the stone bed in his room, rubbing his chin as he pondered for a while. A moment later, he waved his hand and a large number of herbs appeared on his bed. Immediately after, he took out his alchemy furnace and released his conflagrated spiritual energy, wrapping up the various herbs and condensing the medicinal liquids contained within them. 2 days passed in a flash, and when Yang Kai opened his eyes from meditation and swept the room with his divine sense, he found Dai Yuan standing outside. After 2 days of recovery and adjustment, her mood and emotions had completely calmed down, and there was no trace of joy or sadness on her face. Standing outside the door, she didn't urge Yang Kai to come out, simply waiting for him to take the initiative to come out. Yang Kai smiled lightly, feeling that she had adjusted her state quite well, so he quickly got up, got off the stone bed, and opened the door. Dai Yuan heard the sound of movement and raised her eyes, but after seeing Yang Kai, she smiled faintly at him. Let's go. Yang Kai gestured, to which Dai Yuan nodded and immediately led the way. Returning to the huge stone chamber they had passed by before, Dai Yuan led Yang Kai into another corridor. This corridor seemed to lead straight into the depths of the earth and had a series of artificial steps carved out of it, so it wasn't too steep. On both sides of the corridor, there were also some strange stones used for illumination, allowing the soft light to diffuse. As Dai Yuan walked down, Yang Kai didn't say anything, but he continued to spread out his divine sense. Halfway through the journey, Kai Yang suddenly felt a chill in front of him. This chill wasn't just pure cold, it was a kind of cold that made one's hair stand on end. Strictly speaking, this was yin qi. Only places where yin qi gathered would have this kind of cold. It seemed that the so-called yin pond was hidden below. Yang Kai suddenly understood. This kind of yin qi didn't cause any trouble for Yang Kai at all. He didn't even need to circulate his saint qi, he could easily resist it with his physical body. The same was true for Dai Yuan. Although her physique wasn't as good as Yang Kai's, her cultivation and the fact that this yin pond had been here for so many years, presumably Dai Yuan had come down here countless times in order to prepare for detoxification, so she naturally wouldn't be affected by it. The further down she went, the stronger the chill became. After half an incense stick's worth of time, Yang Kai's divine sense, and Dai Yuan SSSSSTT. After walking down for a long time, the scene before her suddenly opened up. There was also a huge stone room below. However, there was nothing in this stone room. If one were to look at it with the naked eye, one would see that this stone room was filled with a dense and cold aura. Strand after strand, it filled every corner of the stone room. The walls of the stone room were also covered in white frost. The temperature here was so low that it would make one's hair stand on end. In the center of the stone room, there was a small pond that covered an area of less than 10 meters. The wisps of cold yin qi were emitted from this small pond. Yang Kai's face changed slightly. Lady Dai Yuan, is this yin pond a 1,000-year yin pond or a 10,000-year yin pond? Dai Yuan seemed to know what Yang Kai wanted to ask and smiled. According to that senior, this yin pond was formed at least 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Yang Kai frowned. For such a long time, the yin qi in this yin pond is not something you can withstand. Are you sure you want to continue? Yin ponds were also divided by age. Yang Kai hadn't heard Dai Yuan mention anything about this yin pond before, so he didn't ask too much about it, but now, this yin pond was actually 5 or 6,000 years old. With such a yin pond, it was likely Dai Yuan would immediately freeze into an ice sculpture if she were to soak in it. Dai Yuan smiled lightly. Junior brother Yang may rest assured, before this, I made a lot of preparations and mixed a lot of fire and yang attribute herbs into the yin pond's water to neutralize the yin qi. On top of that, I am also an alchemist and have cultivated a fire attribute secret art, so as long as I am careful, there shouldn't be any problems. What's more, if I don't continue now, I can only wait for death. If junior brother Yang were in this situation, what would you choose? Yang Kai fell silent, knowing that Dai Yuan had her own difficulties and had no other choice, so he no longer tried to persuade her. Junior brother Yang may rest assured, I have left a letter in my meditation room. If an accident really happens this time and I die, you can take this letter to my honored master. The letter explains everything, she won't embarrass you after reading it. My honored master is Elder Gong Ao Fu who lives on Myriad Fathom Peak, so if you need to leave, you can go find her. Dai Yuan's appearance made it seem as if she was making arrangements for her death, causing Yang Kai to feel a little uncomfortable, but he still nodded, I understand. Dai Yuan smiled and nodded, beckoning to him, please come with me. A moment later, the two arrived at the yin pond. Yang Kai looked around and found that this pond wasn't very deep, only about a meter deep, but it was so clear that he could see the bottom, without the slightest impurities. The water was completely still, like a pool of stagnant water. However, if this pool of stagnant water were to be seen by a cultivator who cultivated an evil secret art, they would definitely be ecstatic and would pay any price to obtain this yin pond. Because this yin pond was simply too useful to them, it was no less valuable than some top precious treasures and precious medicines. At this moment, there were some traces of a spirit array around the yin pond. It should have been the senior from Colored Glass sect who had brought the yin pond here and used a spirit array to restrain it. Dai Yuan pointed to a spot nearby and said, Junior brother Yang, just sit here, I will cooperate with you. Good. Yang Kai nodded, his figure flickering as he sat down cross-legged. There's nothing else to prepare, right? Dai Yuan seemed to be talking to herself as she stared at the yin pond with a complicated expression. Suddenly, she smiled and said, Junior brother Yang, no matter what, Dai Yuan must thank you this time. You are the only person who has been willing to help me in the past 20 years and the only friend I have made in the past 20 years. Saying so, she respectfully bowed to Yang Kai, her expression solemn. 20 years, Yang Kai's brow rose. It seemed that Dai Yuan's change in Colored Glass sect was not as simple as Wu Yi had previously inquired about, which was 10 years ago, but rather began more than 20 years ago. As for Wei Guchang and Dong Xiena, they should be friends she had made before coming here, so they didn't count. Yang Kai waved his hand lightly, Sister Dai Yuan is too serious, this matter is nothing more than a slight effort for me. Right, take this bottle of medicinal liquid. Saying so, Yang Kai tossed a jade bottle to her. This is. Dai Yuan caught the jade bottle and looked at Yang Kai suspiciously. This is a medicinal liquid I formulated myself. Although I can't refine the blood mushroom pill, if you take this bottle of medicinal liquid together with the blood invigorating mushroom, it should be able to stimulate 10 to 20% of the blood invigorating mushroom's medicinal efficacies, which should have some effect on you. With my current level of alchemy, this is the best I can do, Yang Kai said with some regret. The blood invigorating mushroom was rare, and the blood mushroom pill was even more difficult to refine, but the value of the blood mushroom pill was definitely not below that of an Origin King grade pill, perhaps even higher. This was because the blood mushroom pill was a healing saint pill that could bring the dead back to life. For a cultivator who spent years adventuring, this was one of the most valuable pills. Unfortunately, Yang Kai couldn't refine it right now, so he could only use this method to avoid wasting too much of the blood invigorating mushroom's medicinal efficacies. Over the past 2 days, Yang Kai had been formulating this medicinal liquid. Dai Yuan heard this and was pleasantly surprised. She gripped the jade bottle tightly, not even opening it to check its contents as she happily said, I've troubled junior brother Yang, Dai Yuan will definitely live up to your expectations. She felt that she had really found the right person to ask for Yang Kai, because even if she had asked Grandmaster Xiao of her sect or the seniors of Medicine Pill sect, they might not have been able to produce this bottle of medicinal liquid that could stimulate 10 to 20% of the blood-invigorating mushroom's medicinal efficacies. With this bottle of medicinal liquid, her chances of success would be increased by at least 10%, so how could she not be happy? Next, I'll have to trouble junior brother Yang. Dai Yuan put away the bottle of medicinal liquid and said to Yang Kai with a dignified expression. Without waiting for Yang Kai to respond, her figure suddenly spun and her clothes flew off in all directions. In the blink of an eye, only her undergarments were left. Dai Yuan seemed to have been prepared for this moment, so her undergarments were all black. Although they accentuated her exquisite figure, they didn't allow her body to be exposed for the time being. Even so, a faint blush appeared on her face and she didn't want to remain here for a moment longer, her figure flickering as she jumped directly into the yin pond. There wasn't the slightest splash, and the moment she entered the yin pond, Dai Yuan let out a groan as a look of extreme pain appeared on her face. After the yin pond water was stimulated by the foreign object, it began to boil and a white mist appeared, spreading towards Dai Yuan as if it had a mind of its own. Catcher. With a crisp sound, a thin layer of ice immediately appeared on Dai Yuan's tender body, but Dai Yuan only needed to circulate her secret art slightly to expel this thin layer of ice from her body. However, the white mist did not relent and spread even more fiercely towards her body. Dai Yuan finally couldn't bear it and let out a pitiful cry as a dazzling light suddenly erupted from her body. This light was very unusual, as if there were tens of thousands of them. The moment this light bloomed, Yang Kai's mind suddenly froze as he felt his soul being shaken. His knowledge sea trembled slightly and he felt as if invisible shackles had suddenly been placed on his body, making his body feel heavy. Colored glass divine light. Yang Kai couldn't help showing a look of surprise as he stared at Dai Yuan's figure without hesitation. Although he had heard from Yang that the colored glass divine light emitted by Thousand Illusion Colored Glass Mountain had the effect of restraining one's soul, he hadn't expected it to be so strange and impossible to guard against. Chapter 1276. Fortunately, Dai Yuan wasn't deliberately targeting Yang Kai, and Yang Kai himself wasn't an ordinary person, so after a moment of shock, he immediately resisted the colored glass divine light's assault and released his conflagrated knowledge sea towards Dai Yuan. At this moment, Dai Yuan's face seemed to be distorted by severe pain, making her appearance even more unbearable to look at. However, what surprised Yang Kai was that not only did she seem to be lacking in looks, but her entire body was also like her face, covered with scars and bruises, making her look completely different from an ordinary woman's. Before, when she was wearing black undergarments, Yang Kai hadn't noticed anything, but when she entered the yin pond and her undergarments were soaked in the water, Yang Kai immediately discovered this problem after using his divine sense to examine Dai Yuan. Her entire body seemed to be covered in scars and bruises, just like her face, with the exception of her two white and flawless hands, making it difficult to look straight at her. It seems that cultivating the Thousand Illusion Colored Glass art is extremely harmful. Yang Kai immediately understood that the reason she was like this was definitely related to the Thousand Illusion Colored Glass art. Junior brother Yang. Just as Yang Kai was slightly dazed, Dai Yuan grit her teeth and called out in a trembling voice. Yang Kai nodded and shouted, "Let's begin." The next moment. Without hesitation, Dai Yuan opened an acupuncture point on her chest and began madly drawing the yin pond's water into her body. After the bone-chilling liquid entered her tender body, Dai Yuan shuddered uncontrollably, but she still gritted her teeth, her lips turning blue as she stared at Yang Kai with her beautiful eyes. Yang Kai didn't say a word as his conflagrated knowledge sea also rushed into the acupuncture point and instantly engraved several alchemy spirit arrays into Dai Yuan's body. Conflagrated knowledge sea. Dai Yuan's eyes flashed with surprise, she hadn't expected this at all. Yang Kai actually possessed a conflagrated knowledge sea. After all, according to her original plan, Yang Kai needed to place his hand on her chest and pour his Saint Qi into her body, using her body as a furnace. Using the various medicinal efficacies contained in the yin pond's water as materials. then using alchemy techniques to expel the colored glass poison from her body. While they were discussing various details before, Yang Kai hadn't revealed that he possessed a conflagrated knowledge sea, but seeing it at this moment, Dai Yuan wasn't surprised. Because if this was the case, there was no need for Yang Kai to have any intimate contact with her body. This made her feel both shocked and relieved. After all, no matter what, she was still an innocent woman. Having her body touched by another man was still somewhat unbearable. Just as Dai Yuan's thoughts were racing, with the acupuncture point as the center, the yin pond's water began to swirl rapidly. Under the control of Yang Kai's conflagrated knowledge sea, the various medicinal efficacies that Dai Yuan had integrated into the yin pond's water were perfectly integrated. An uncomfortable feeling spread from her chest, causing Dai Yuan's breathing to become heavy, as if something was blocking her from circulating her strength. However, as Yang Kai continued to engrave spirit arrays, under the effect of these spirit arrays, the various medicinal efficacies in the yin pond's water began to clash and fuse together. A strange aura exuding a strange light was forced out of Dai Yuan's chest and into the yin pond. However, this filament-like thing didn't dissipate and instead swam like a fish in the water, unhindered. Soon, another similar thing was forced out, and as time passed, more and more filaments poured out of Dai Yuan's body, filling the entire yin pond with these strange glowing things. After half an hour, Dai Yuan suddenly felt the suffocating feeling in her chest disappear and the blocked Saint Qi in her body begin to circulate. The originally unbearable chill no longer posed any threat to her. Dai Yuan was overjoyed and hurriedly released her divine sense to examine her body. There was no longer any colored glass poison in the flesh with the previously opened acupoint as the center. Moreover, the skin on the surface had finally returned to its normal state. It was white with a tinge of rosy, snow-white and delicate, and no longer looked as ugly as it was before. However, because she had been soaked in the yin pond's water, there were still some bruises, forming a stark contrast with the rest of her body. Dai Yuan's eyes suddenly became hazy and her heart trembled, almost allowing more of the yin pond's water to enter her body. Guard your mind and don't think about anything else. Once everything is over, you can examine yourself properly. Yang Kai's shout suddenly rang in her ear, waking her from her pleasant surprise. Looking up at Yang Kai, who was sitting cross-legged in front of her, urging his conflagrated knowledge sea to fuse with the medicinal efficacies, Dai Yuan found that his expression was calm and did not show any signs of embarrassment. Nodding, she opened another acupuncture point and allowed the yin pond's water to enter her body. Yang Kai immediately cooperated with her without the slightest hesitation. Under the cover of his divine sense, although he could clearly see every part of Dai Yuan's body, essentially stripping her naked in front of him, at this moment, this was a matter of life and death, so Yang Kai didn't have time to think about anything else. With a serious expression, he poured all of his energy into the yin pond's medicinal efficacies. Dai Yuan had already poured a large number of herbs into this yin pond, so it wasn't difficult to dispel the colored glass poison. The difficult part was controlling the fusion of medicinal efficacies and Dai Yuan's own tolerance. The former was fine as Dai Yuan was an alchemist herself, so when Yang Kai used his conflagrated knowledge sea, she only needed to cooperate slightly to stimulate the medicinal efficacies. However, the latter was not something Yang Kai could help with, it all depended on Dai Yuan's own will. The colored glass poison had already penetrated deep into her body, and every time it was expelled, not only was it expelling the toxins, but it was also expelling some of her life essence. Once or twice wouldn't be a problem, but once it happened too many times, she might not be able to pass this hurdle. This was indeed the case. Every time it was expelled, it took at least a stick of incense worth of time. Half a day later, less than a fifth of the poison had been expelled, but Dai Yuan was already on the verge of collapse, her face as pale as paper. Fortunately, Dai Yuan had made sufficient preparations. At this time, she took out some pills from her space ring and tossed them into her mouth, restoring some color to her face. Seeing this, Yang Kai also slowed down his movements, giving Dai Yuan enough time to refine the medicinal efficacies. However, Yang Kai and Dai Yuan didn't dare waste too much time. After all, soaking in the yin pond for so long had consumed a great deal of Dai Yuan's vitality, so after a short rest, the two of them repeated the same process again. Time passed little by little, and the colored glass poison in Dai Yuan's body was gradually removed, but Yang Kai's expression only became more and more serious. He couldn't see if Dai Yuan could pass this hurdle because up to now, Dai Yuan had already begun to overdraw her life source to barely maintain her bodily functions and cooperate with him in expelling the poison, but doing this was not a long-term solution. Once she couldn't hold on any longer, she would undoubtedly die. Even if she could persist, Dai Yuan would need to rest for a long time afterwards. But now that things had come to this point, there was no turning back. Whether it was Yang Kai or Dai Yuan, both of them had to persevere until the end. Seemingly feeling Yang Kai's gaze, Dai Yuan, who was struggling to hold on, suddenly opened her eyes and squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. "I can do it, junior brother Yang, you don't need to hold back, just do as you please." Yang Kai's expression remained indifferent, but after feeling her determination, he nodded lightly and didn't say anything. His conflagrated knowledge sea burst out again as he carved a series of spirit arrays into Dai Yuan's defenseless body, drawing in the medicinal efficacies of the yin pond to cleanse her body. Dai Yuan screamed again, sounding extremely desolate, as if she was suffering some kind of inhumane torture. Another day passed by and most of Dai Yuan's body had returned to normal. Under the investigation of Yang Kai's divine sense, he found that she indeed had some assets that ordinary women did not have. Her skin was white and tender, and her figure was incredibly voluptuous. Even her face was no longer as unsightly as it used to be. At this moment, besides her pale complexion, there was no trace of her former appearance. Clearly, she was a stunning beauty that was enough to make any man's heart beat faster. Combined with her current appearance after suffering so much torture, she appeared particularly delicate and charming. Yang Kai had already expected this, so he wasn't surprised and simply focused on his own task. At a certain moment, Yang Kai took back his conflagrated knowledge sea and suddenly shouted in a thunderous voice, "Hurry up and swallow the blood invocation mushroom." Dai Yuan didn't seem to have much consciousness left, her pair of beautiful eyes dim and lifeless. Before this, she only knew how to mechanically cooperate with Yang Kai's actions, the last trace of obsession in her heart keeping her from giving up. Hearing Yang Kai's shout, Dai Yuan's lifeless eyes immediately restored a trace of clarity and she quickly took out the wooden box containing the blood invocation mushroom from her space ring, opened it, and swallowed the blood invocation mushroom in one gulp. The next moment, she took out the jade bottle Yang Kai had given her and poured the medicinal liquid inside into her mouth. Once this medicine entered her stomach, Dai Yuan's condition finally improved a little, an abnormal flush quickly appearing on her pale face as her blood began to circulate rapidly. The huge vitality contained in the blood invocation mushroom began to spread throughout her body, making up for her lost life source. Yang Kai didn't wait for Dai Yuan to completely refine the medicinal efficacies of the blood invocation mushroom before enveloping her with his conflagrated knowledge sea again. Success or failure would depend on this final juncture. If Dai Yuan's willpower was strong enough, she should have a 30% chance of surviving, but if she couldn't, then she could only blame herself for running out of luck and having no one else to blame. Dai Yuan understood this better than anyone else and immediately cooperated with Yang Kai. In an instant, the entire yin pond's water began to surge, madly pouring into Dai Yuan's body. Layers of white mist began to envelop her and thin threads of strange light were forced out of her body. Chapter 1277. 1,000 meters below Thousand Illusion Peak, next to the 10-meter yin pond, Yang Kai sat cross-legged, his brow furrowed slightly as a look of contemplation appeared on his face. He was fiddling with an inconspicuous grey bead in his hand. Expelling the poison from Dai Yuan's body had been completed, and Dai Yuan's luck had been quite good. She had managed to survive the last moment and successfully remove all the colored glass poison from her body. Just before she fell unconscious, she had suddenly opened her mouth and spat out this bead, only having time to tell Yang Kai that it was a colored glass bead before fainting. Yang Kai took her out of the yin pond, circulated his saint qi to evaporate the cold yin qi in her body, then took off his clothes and covered her body with them before standing guard beside her. If possible, Yang Kai wanted to take her back to her room to rest, but she was only wearing her undergarments right now, so carrying her was a bit inconvenient. The bead in his hand didn't have anything special about it. Even if he threw it out, no one would be interested in it, but when Yang Kai carefully observed it, he was shocked to discover that this inconspicuous grey bead was actually exuding a dazzling light. This light was identical to the colored glass divine light and had the effect of restraining one's soul, easily penetrating his knowledge-sea defenses and shaking his soul. Yang Kai immediately understood that this bead was probably an extremely valuable treasure. Although Yang Kai had never seen thousand illusion-colored glass with his own eyes, he vaguely understood that the formation of this bead should be related to the thousand illusion-colored glass art Dai Yuan cultivated and the thousand illusion-colored glass art she had ingested. However, after examining it countless times, Yang Kai discovered a very strange thing. This bead was somewhat similar to a pill, but also somewhat similar to an artifact refining material. It was difficult to tell which was which. While fiddling with it, Yang Kai's expression changed and he held the colored glass bead in his palm before turning to look at Dai Yuan, who was lying on the ground. Over there, Dai Yuan's long eyelashes were trembling slightly and her 10 slender jade fingers seemed to be moving slightly, obviously a sign that she was about to wake up. Looking at her completely different face from before, Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh. Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh. Before the colored glass poison was expelled, Dai Yuan's appearance was unbearable to look at, but now, she had become an outstanding beauty. Compared to Yin Su Dai, Yang Kai was slightly stronger. Yang Kai didn't know what would have happened if she had entered the yin pond like this. Could he still be as calm as still water? Thinking about it carefully, he would probably be a little distracted. After all, he was still a man. No man would remain indifferent in the face of such a beautiful and almost naked woman. After waiting for a while, Dai Yuan opened her eyes and moved her body slightly, only to discover that she was extremely weak and couldn't help groaning. Since you're awake, you should rest for a bit. Your current condition is not very optimistic. Yang Kai's faint voice came over. Hearing this, Dai Yuan lowered her eyes and immediately saw Yang Kai sitting not far from her, looking at her with a smile. Her expression changed slightly and she wanted to say something, but no words came out. After discovering that Yang Kai wasn't wearing his robes and that there was something covering her body, Dai Yuan's beautiful eyes flashed a trace of gratitude and security before she immediately closed her eyes again and silently circulated her secret art. 2 hours later, Dai Yuan sat up, dressed herself neatly, took out a number of pre-prepared restorative medicines from her space ring, stuffed them into her mouth, and continued to meditate. Another day later, Dai Yuan let out a deep breath and opened her eyes again. Her beautiful eyes were filled with vigor, and it seemed that her cultivation had also made some progress. Although her face was still a little pale, there was nothing wrong with it. As long as she calmed down and recuperated, she would eventually recover. Standing up, Dai Yuan walked over to Yang Kai and bowed deeply. Dai Yuan thanks junior brother Yang. This time, if it weren't for junior brother's help, I'm afraid I would have already fallen. Junior brother Yang's great kindness will be engraved in Dai Yuan's heart and will never forget it. Yang Kai also stood up and waved his hand with a smile, saying indifferently, being able to break through the gates of hell was your own effort, I didn't have much to do with it. Dai Yuan slowly shook her head. Junior brother Yang overestimates Dai Yuan. I know that if the one I invited this time was not junior brother Yang but instead Grandmaster Xiao or one of the seniors from Medicine Pill Sect, I definitely wouldn't be standing here right now. Without mentioning anything else, the bottle of medicinal liquid you gave me must have cost a lot of precious herbs, right? Without that bottle of medicinal liquid, I wouldn't have been able to hold on for the last few hours. She clearly felt that after she took the blood-invigorating mushroom and that bottle of medicinal liquid, her depleted vitality had actually been restored significantly, and as time passed, it was still slowly recovering. It was because of this that she had been able to hold on until the end, otherwise, she would have died long ago. Directly taking a blood-invigorating mushroom wouldn't have such a great effect. If it had been a blood mushroom pill, it might have been possible to cause such a change, but an unrefined blood-invigorating mushroom shouldn't have been able to achieve this, so the only explanation was that bottle of medicinal liquid. Although she didn't know how much time and effort Yang Kai had spent on that bottle of medicinal liquid, it was obviously not something ordinary. Yang Kai not mentioning it was because he was generous, so how could Dai Yuan not care? Seeing her say this, Yang Kai didn't try to deny it, nor did he admit it. What Dai Yuan didn't know was that although that bottle of medicinal liquid had cost him a lot of precious herbs, the most important reason was because he had dripped a drop of his golden blood into it. Yang Kai's golden blood contained an extremely powerful vitality, so it was the most suitable for restoring Dai Yuan's vitality at that time. In any case, Sister Dai Yuan has finally succeeded. Congratulations, congratulations. Yang Kai laughed and changed the subject. Dai Yuan also showed a charming smile as she turned her head and stared at the reflection of her peerless face in the calm waters of the yin pond, her beautiful eyes filling with a brilliant light. Yang Kai observed her expression from the side and tactfully didn't disturb her, allowing her to enjoy the joy and excitement of regaining her lost beauty. After a while, Dai Yuan suddenly stretched out her hand and a gust of wind swept out from her sleeve, causing the clear waters of the yin pond to ripple and shatter her beautiful face, which was enough to make any man's heart beat faster. Immediately, Dai Yuan circulated her Saint Qi and, under the stunned gaze of Yang Kai, her beautiful appearance once again reverted to the appearance she had when Yang Kai first saw her. Ugly, dry, and pockmarked, her appearance was unbearable to look at. Yang Kai frowned. There was no woman who didn't like to be beautiful, and Dai Yuan was no exception. Otherwise, she wouldn't have lost her calm when that heaven-battling Union disciple provoked her back in Liuyang Desert, nor would she have shown such a nostalgic look just now. However, since she had done this, she must have her reasons. Yang Kai didn't ask any questions, but what made Yang Kai curious was that when he swept her with his divine sense, he couldn't find the slightest flaw on her face. Dai Yuan's face seemed to have really returned to its previous ugly appearance. This surprised him greatly. After all, he had seen Dai Yuan's true colors with his own eyes. Yang Kai didn't ask, but Dai Yuan took the initiative to explain, "I've let junior brother Yang see something embarrassing. I don't think it's a good time to disclose this matter yet, so I can only confuse outsiders for now. When I break through to the origin returning realm, it won't be too late to explain everything to honored master. Young lady's considerations are quite thorough." Yang Kai nodded in agreement before immediately changing the subject and asking, "Dare I ask young lady Dai Yuan, what is the use of this bead?" Saying so, he took out the colored glass bead. Dai Yuan looked at this colored glass bead and smiled slightly. "Ian, I was too busy spitting out this bead before to tell junior brother Yang how to use it." Dai Yuan was too careless. "Ian, let me put it this way, this bead is somewhat similar to a monster beast's monster core to me." "A monster core?" Yang Kai was stunned when he heard this. "Ien, because the thousand illusion-colored glass art was created based on a monster beast's cultivation method. Junior brother Yang should know that some monster beasts are born with the ability to swallow all kinds of minerals, extract their essence, and store it in their monster core. After I cultivated the thousand illusion-colored glass art and consumed thousand illusion-colored glass, this bead was born in my body." Yang Kai was surprised and quickly asked, "If that's the case, won't losing it have any effect on your body?" "There will definitely be some effect, but it won't be great. It's just an existence similar to a monster core, but it's not as important as a monster beast's monster core. As long as I have enough time and thousand illusion-colored glass, I will be able to cultivate this kind of thing in the future." Hearing this, Yang Kai breathed a sigh of relief, but also secretly sighed. The person who created the thousand illusion-colored glass art was truly a heaven-defying genius, actually being able to produce something similar to a monster beast's monster core in a cultivator's body. No wonder when he examined it, it was similar to a pill, but it was also similar to an artifact refining material. Dai Yuan looked at Yang Kai with a smile and said, "Although this colored glass bead is important to me, it isn't that important, but to junior brother Yang, it is of great use." "Oh, please enlighten me, young lady." Yang Kai's expression became solemn. He had been investigating this colored glass bead for a long time but still didn't know how to deal with it. He had wanted to ask the Yang Inflammation Department about it, but now hearing Dai Yuan say this, it seemed she knew a way. If junior brother Yang can refine this colored glass bead, perhaps he will be able to comprehend some of its mysteries. After all, this is the condensed essence of thousand illusion-colored glass. If junior brother Yang can really comprehend the mysteries of colored glass divine light, he will have an additional means to deal with his enemies in the future. With the help of this colored glass bead, I estimate that with junior brother Yang's aptitude, there is an 80% chance he will be able to refine it. Colored glass divine light. Yang Kai's expression changed. When he was helping Dai Yuan expel the poison, he had suffered a small loss from colored glass divine light, so he was naturally aware of its power. However, except for those who cultivated the thousand illusion colored glass art, no other cultivator could comprehend colored glass divine light. Now, with the help of this colored glass bead, Yang Kai could do so he couldn't help feeling overjoyed. Chapter 1278. If this was really the case, then Dai Yuan's gift was not a small one. Junior brother Yang may rest assured, this colored glass bead is different from the thousand illusion colored glass I took. It is not poisonous, so as long as junior brother carefully refines it, there shouldn't be any problems. Consider this the reward Dai Yuan promised junior brother Yang. Dai Yuan has nothing on her, and all the resources she has accumulated over the years were used up in order to detoxify this poison, so I hope junior brother Yang will not refuse. Dai Yuan didn't tell Yang Kai that this colored glass bead was the fruit of her 20 years of hard work in cultivating the thousand illusion colored glass art. Although she had reached the minor accomplishment stage in this secret art and could still cultivate it again, it was impossible to do so without several years of accumulation. Yang Kai grinned and said, I am very satisfied with this reward. Lady Dai Yuan is quite considerate. Saying so, he put away the colored glass bead and glanced around at the yin pond, which had lost so much of its yin qi that it had almost been reduced to an ordinary pond. Yang Kai said, since we're done here, let's go back up. Good, after so many days of delay, I'm sure Lady Yang Inflammation is anxious. Dai Yuan smiled lightly and led Yang Kai back the way they had come. It seemed that because her appearance and body had been restored to its original state, her every move and action was filled with a myriad of emotions, completely different from before, causing Yang Kai to secretly admire her. Not long after, the two returned to their room on the upper floor. After separating, Yang Kai sat down in his room. After taking out the colored glass bead and playing with it for a while, Yang Kai's eyes flashed, as if he had thought of something good, and a smile appeared on his face. At that moment, the door was pushed open and Yang Inflammation appeared in the room, wrapped in a black robe. Is everything done? Yang Inflammation asked. It's time to go. Yang Inflammation seemed a little anxious, but she didn't ask why Dai Yuan had invited Yang Kai here. What happened? Yang Kai furrowed his brow. Nothing much happened. It's just that I feel that we shouldn't stay here for too long. Xiao Xiao has already been there for 7 or 8 days. It's time for it to come back. If it's too greedy, it might cause problems. Yang Kai thought about it and felt that what she said made sense. He nodded and said, okay, we'll leave after tonight. Although he was still inside Thousand Illusion Peak, Yang Kai could still use his divine sense to check the situation outside. It was still dark outside. It was naturally inconvenient to leave at this time. He could only wait until dawn to leave. After the discussion, Yang also returned to his room to rest. The night passed uneventfully, and the next day, Yang Kai immediately bid farewell to Dai Yuan. Dai Yuan very warmly invited Yang Kai to stay for a few more days. Moreover, he also had the intention to exchange alchemy knowledge with him. However, Yang Kai had a guilty conscience at this moment. How could he be in the mood to continue staying? After a while, Dai Yuan reluctantly agreed. She then personally escorted him and Yang Inflammation out of Grand Crystal Mountain Range. On the way, Dai Yuan told Yang Kai that after a few months of recovery, she would begin breaking through to the origin returning realm. Once she succeeded, she would definitely pay a visit to Dragon Cave Mountain to thank him in person. Yang Kai naturally agreed. Just as the two of them were talking, a world-shaking noise suddenly rang out from within the Grand Crystal Mountain Range. Immediately, a pillar of light that emitted a myriad of rays of light shot into the sky, as if it wanted to pierce a hole in the sky. Even though the three of them were thousands of kilometers away, they were still able to see the pillar of light clearly. Colored glass mountain. Dai Yuan's beautiful eyes narrowed as she stared at this pillar of light and exclaimed, The place where this pillar of light came from was obviously where Thousand Illusion-colored glass mountain was located. It seemed that for some reason, the spirit array arranged around colored glass mountain had become unstable, causing colored glass mountain's colored glass divine light to erupt on its own. Yang Kai's complexion changed slightly as he exchanged a glance with Yang Inflammation, immediately thinking of many possibilities. But soon, Yang Kai's expression returned to normal and he asked, "Is there a problem with your noble sect's colored glass mountain?" "Ian, I don't know what happened, but it seems some kind of barrier has been triggered. Junior brother Yang, I originally wanted to accompany you for a while longer, but that won't be possible now. I cultivate the Thousand Illusion-colored glass art, so I must hurry over. You and Sister Yang Inflammation must take care of yourselves. Since such a big thing has happened to your noble sect, Sister Dai Yuan really should make a trip there. We've already left Grand Crystal Mountain Range, so Yang Inflammation and I can travel the rest of the way on our own." Yang Kai gently nodded. "Good, then we'll have a good chat when I visit Dragon Cave Mountain." Dai Yuan smiled apologetically. Dai Yuan smiled apologetically before her tender body flickered and she turned into a stream of light, flying back the way she came at an incredible speed. After her figure disappeared, Yang Kai pulled Yang Inflammation and shouted, "Let's go." The two summoned their star shuttles at the same time and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Although Yang Kai didn't understand what had happened, he guessed that it had something to do with the stone mongoose, so how could he be willing to remain here? After all, there had been an accident last night when he was retrieving the stone mongoose. Fortunately, he had left today, otherwise, if something like this had happened, it would have been extremely difficult for him and Yang Inflammation to leave Colored Glass Sect. With Dai Yuan as his guarantor, Yang Kai didn't have to worry about being harmed in Colored Glass Sect, but if he were to reveal any clues, Colored Glass Sect would never let him off. At that time, even Dai Yuan's words would be useless. At the same time, next to the Thousand Illusion-colored glass mountain that Yang Kai had seen before, several dozen second or third-order origin returning realm masters were floating in the air around it. Among them, there were more than a dozen peak third-order origin returning realm masters, all of whom were radiating powerful auras. Half of these masters were shuttling back and forth around Colored Glass Mountain, constantly pouring their pure Saint Chi into an unknown barrier in front of them. After receiving so much Saint Chi, this barrier fluctuated in size and seemed to be trying to suppress the colored glass divine light rising from the Thousand Illusion-colored glass mountain. The other half were also secretly circulating their Saint Chi as they stared towards the Thousand Illusion-colored glass mountain with dignified expressions, seemingly ready to attack at any moment. What happened? A voice suddenly sounded, and immediately, a thin old man with 3 strands of long beard and silver-white hair suddenly appeared 1,000 meters away from Colored Glass Mountain. When the many origin-returning realm masters saw this old man, they cupped their fists. "Greetings, Sect Master." This old man was none other than Sect Master Gong Xing He of Colored Glass Sect. Gong Xing He just waved his hand, motioning for everyone to dispense with formalities before turning his gaze to the 2 third-order origin-returning realm cultivator, a man and a woman, who were flying over in a hurry. The man was middle-aged and had an imposing appearance. Although it was impossible to tell his exact age, the vicissitudes of life that appeared in the corners of his eyes indicated that he was not young. The woman was also a middle-aged beauty with a soft waist and a charming appearance. The two of them arrived in front of Gong Xing He and bowed together. "Elder Ma, Elder Du, the two of you have been guarding this place for the past few years. What happened here?" Gong Xing He looked at the two of them and asked with a dignified expression. The man surnamed Ma and the beautiful woman surnamed Du exchanged a glance before the man surnamed Ma cupped his fists and replied, reporting to Sect Master, "The situation is like this. Last night, for some reason, Elder Du suddenly felt that the spirit array under Colored Glass Mountain was showing signs of loosening. Immediately, she sent out her mountain quarrying beast to investigate, but what the two of us did not expect was that after the mountain quarrying beast went over there, it suddenly disappeared without a trace. No matter how we tried, we were unable to contact it and even now it has not returned. But just now, the colored glass divine light suddenly erupted. The two of us guessed that the spirit array under Colored Glass Mountain was indeed damaged, otherwise, such a thing would not have happened. The spirit array was damaged. Gong Xinghe frowned and quickly said, "This has not happened for over 100 years. Every few years, we restabilize the spirit array and spirit array, so how could it be damaged?" This. The man surnamed Ma hesitated for a while, not knowing how to answer. Seeing him act like this, Gong Xinghe naturally knew that he wouldn't be able to get any answers, so he turned to the beautiful woman and asked, "Elder Du, is there only one mountain quarrying beast?" The beautiful middle-aged woman smiled bitterly. "There is more than one mountain quarrying beast, but the one that can withstand the colored glass divine light and approach colored glass mountain's spirit array is the only one. The others are not very useful. After all, this kind of thing was specially bought from the Myriad Beast sect in order to guard colored glass mountain. The Myriad Beast sect did not tell us how to raise and enslave this monster beast. So, we have no way to investigate the spirit array under colored glass mountain now?" Gong Xinghe immediately showed a displeased expression. The man surnamed Ma and the beautiful woman surnamed Du lowered their heads and remained silent. "We also don't know why this happened?" Gong Xinghe asked again. The expressions of the two colored glass sect elders became even more awkward. Seeing this situation, another elder nearby spoke up, "Although we don't know whether the damage to the spirit array is man-made or not, the most important thing right now is to suppress the eruption of the colored glass divine light. If this continues, the spirit array here may collapse and we may lose this treasure mountain. The second most important thing is to thoroughly investigate colored glass sect and see if any outsiders have come here recently. If this is really man-made, it can only be one of these outsiders." "That's right," someone immediately echoed. Gong Xinghe pondered for a moment before turning to the elder who had just spoken and nodding, "I'll leave the matter of investigating the outsiders to you. For the outsiders who are still in colored glass sect, don't let them leave for the time being, but don't make things difficult for them either. If this is really their doing, then they must have had ideas about the 1,000 illusion colored glass. I'd like to see who has such great courage to try and steal from us." "Yes." The elder accepted the order and immediately withdrew. Not far away, Yin Su Dai, who had heard the commotion and rushed over, giggled and chased after the elder, seemingly having something to report. On the other side, another young woman with a graceful figure suddenly walked up and said to Gong Xinghe, "Sect Master, please calm your anger. In fact, if we want to investigate the spirit array underground, besides the mountain quarrying beast, there is another way." Chapter 1279. Seeing this young woman speak, Gong Xinghe's expression relaxed slightly and he nodded. "Fu tell me, what is it?" The young woman smiled when she heard this. "Father, have you forgotten? There is another disciple in my sect who cultivates the 1,000 illusion-colored glass art." This young woman and Gong Xinghe were father and daughter, and both of them were third-order origin returning realm masters. This situation was not unusual on Shadowed Star because the third-order origin returning realm was the limit a cultivator could reach. As such, in many great sects, there would be father and son, master and disciple cultivator with the same cultivation. From the way Gong Xinghe addressed this young woman, it was obvious she was the one Dai Yuan had mentioned to Yang Kai, the Gong Ao Fu who lived on Myriad Illusion Peak. 1,000 illusion-colored glass art. When Gong Xinghe heard these words, a trace of dread flashed across the depths of his eyes. The same was true for the other elders, all of them seemingly recalling something, their expressions becoming complicated. "Is that the junior who lives on 1,000 Illusion Peak?" Gong Xinghe quickly withdrew the strange look in his eyes and asked indifferently. "En." Gong Ao Fu nodded lightly. "Where is she?" Gong Xinghe asked. "She seems to be on her way here, probably because she saw what happened here." As Gong Ao Fu spoke, she turned her head to the side where a blue streak of light was rapidly approaching. Everyone waited for a moment before the blue streak of light flew over and paused for a moment before revealing a graceful figure. However, when everyone saw the face of this figure, they all showed some surprise. This newcomer was naturally Dai Yuan, who had rushed here in a hurry, seemingly knowing that so many elders and elders would be gathered here. As such, Dai Yuan did not show any panic and first bowed to Gong Xinghe in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. 1,000 Illusion Peak disciple Dai Yuan greets Sect Master. Gongxing he gently nodded but did not say anything. Dai Yuan then bowed to Gong Ao Fu before greeting the many elders and elders present. Gong Ao Fu's brow furrowed slightly as she swept Dai Yuan with her divine sense, asking suspiciously, Yuan what have you been doing these past few days? Why do you seem to have suffered some loss of vitality? Dai Yuan bowed her head and replied, Disciple encountered a slight setback in her cultivation. However, it is not a serious matter. Thank you for your concern. Although this was what she said, Dai Yuan's expression remained indifferent, as if she was just following a routine. Seeing this, Gongxing frowned. He didn't care about her attitude. Your master said that you have a way to investigate the situation below Colored Glass Mountain. Is that true? Investigate Colored Glass Mountain? Yes, we suspect that one of the restrictions underground has been damaged. It's just that I don't know if it was damaged by someone or by myself, so I need you to check it out. Are there any problems? The sect raised me, now that I have a use for it, Dai Yuan naturally won't refuse. Dai Yuan replied lightly. Hearing this, Gong Ao Fu opened her mouth, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She only said, if that's the case, then investigate and inform us of the situation. Disciple obeys. Dai Yuan did not hesitate, immediately closing her eyes and circulating her secret art. Soon, a colored glass divine light similar to the one erupting from Colored Glass Mountain burst forth from her tender body, but this colored glass divine light was less than a millionth of Colored Glass Mountains. The colored glass divine light only flickered around Dai Yuan for a moment before transforming into a streak of light that shot straight into Colored Glass Mountain. Seeing this, many of the elders who had never seen the Thousand Illusion colored glass art before showed looks of interest. Because the Thousand Illusion colored glass mountain was not restrained by the 5 elements and had the effect of restraining one's soul, even if their cultivations were far higher than Dai Yuan's, they were unable to release their divine sense or use any method to investigate the situation below Colored Glass Mountain. But now, Dai Yuan, who was only a third-order Saint King, was able to easily accomplish this feat, causing them to be both interested and shocked. They naturally knew about the Thousand Illusion colored glass art and the dangers of cultivating this secret art, so after a moment of contemplation, they no longer paid any attention to Dai Yuan and simply waited quietly. After a long time, the ray of light that shot into Colored Glass Mountain suddenly reappeared and rushed into Dai Yuan's tender body. Seeing this, many of Colored Glass Sect's elders turned to look at Dai Yuan, waiting for her answer. Dai Yuan, on the other hand, still had her eyes closed, as if she was sensing something. After a while, she opened her eyes and bowed, reporting to Sect Master, Honored Master, the barrier under Colored Glass Mountain is indeed damaged, and next to it, there seems to be the corpse of a monster beast. It seems that because this monster beast triggered the barrier, not only was it killed, it was also damaged. Monster beast. The beautiful woman surnamed Du's face changed slightly. Could it be the mountain quarrying beast? It shouldn't be. The man surnamed Ma also wore a puzzled look. Logically speaking, the mountain quarrying beast shouldn't have damaged the barrier. It has explored this place many times without making any mistakes, so why was it like this time? The beautiful woman surnamed Du looked at Dai Yuan and asked with a slight smile, Martial niece, could it be that you made a mistake? The mountain quarrying beast was a monster beast we bought from Myriad Beast Sect specifically for use in this place. It shouldn't have damaged the barrier. Then I don't know, but this is the situation I investigated. If Elder Du doesn't believe me, you can find another way to investigate. After Dai Yuan said these 2 words, her face became slightly pale, as if using the Thousand Illusion colored glass art just now had exhausted her. The beautiful woman surnamed Du smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything more. If she had a way to investigate carefully, why would she need to rely on Dai Yuan's ability? It was just that she and Elder Ma had been guarding this place all this time, so now that something had happened to Colored Glass Mountain, they had to bear some responsibility. Since it's a problem with the mountain quarrying beast, it shouldn't be a big problem. All that's left is to repair the spirit array. Since the barrier underground is broken, we'll just have to find another way to fix it. Gongxing his face flashed a thoughtful look, but he didn't ask Dai Yuan too many questions. Father. Since it's a problem with the mountain quarrying beast, should we investigate the guests who have visited during this time? When Gong Ao Fu asked this question, she glanced over at Dai Yuan, apparently having learned from Yin Su Dai that Dai Yuan had also received guests a few days ago. You can decide on this matter yourselves. Gong Xing he waved his hand before turning around, his figure flickering and disappearing. As soon as their sect master left, many of the elders couldn't help secretly breathing a sigh of relief. The man surnamed Ma and the beautiful woman surnamed Du glanced at each other before the former said, although according to Marshal Nis Dai Yuan's investigation, the destruction of the barrier here has nothing to do with outsiders, I still feel that something is wrong. Elder Du has been cultivating the mountain quarrying beast for more than 30 years and has never made any mistakes, but this time it has. Perhaps there is some unknown reason for this. When everyone heard him say this, they naturally understood that he was trying to shirk responsibility. If it was an outsider, then he and the beautiful woman surnamed Du's responsibility would naturally be lighter. Immediately, everyone laughed and said that this matter would be handled by the man surnamed Ma and the beautiful woman surnamed Du and that they wouldn't intervene. The man surnamed Ma didn't decline and naturally prepared to investigate the visitors with all their might. On the other side, Dai Yuan walked over to Gong Ao Fu with a pale face and bowed, "Honored master, disciple will also go back to rest." "Good, I've troubled you this time. Before you reach the minor accomplishment stage in the 1000 illusion-colored glass art, you generally cannot use the colored glass divine light. It seems that your loss of Yuan Qi this time is not small. Return to 1000 illusion peak and rest for a few months. Take this bottle of 100 sifting pills, it should be able to make up for your loss of Yuan Qi." Saying so, Gong Ao Fu tossed a bottle of pills over to Dai Yuan. Dai Yuan caught it, thanked her profusely, and immediately withdrew. Gong Ao Fu allowing her to rest for a few months was exactly what she wanted. She had originally planned to rest for a few months before attempting to break through to the origin returning realm. While the many elders of Colored Glass sect repaired the barrier and spirit array, Dai Yuan returned to 1000 Illusion Peak and went straight to the room Yang Kai had lived in before. Standing inside the room and looking around, Dai Yuan's beautiful eyes flickered with uncertainty. After a while, she began circulating her Saint Qi and the colored glass divine light burst out from her body again, drilling directly into the ground and disappearing. Narrowing her eyes slightly, Dai Yuan carefully examined her surroundings and after a moment, her tender body suddenly shook as a look of disbelief appeared on her face, whispering softly, "It really is you." When she was investigating Colored Glass Mountain before, she had noticed that there was a small hole at the bottom of Colored Glass Mountain that seemed to have been drilled into by something. On top of that, Colored Glass Mountain seemed to be missing a lot of 1000 illusion colored glass. However, when she followed a small underground passage to investigate, Dai Yuan was shocked to discover that the location this passage led to was actually her 1000 illusion peak. Although the entire passage had been deliberately repaired, there were still some imperceptible traces left behind, and under the cover of the colored glass divine light, these traces had nowhere to hide. Surprised, Dai Yuan didn't dare to say anything because she vaguely felt that this matter might have something to do with Yang Kai. At that time, she wasn't certain and had only been careful, so she had pushed all the blame onto the mountain quarrying beast. However, the mountain quarrying beast had not been killed by the barrier and instead seemed to have been slapped to death by something. Now that she had returned to 1000 Illusion Peak and investigated, she immediately confirmed her previous conjecture. Underneath the room where Yang Kai had lived, there was a similar passage leading to Colored Glass Mountain. Over the years, Dai Yuan had only received 2 guests, Yang Kai and Yang Yun, so it would be strange if they hadn't done something to this place. Dai Yuan didn't know what kind of magical method Yang Kai had used to open up a passage to 1000 Illusion Colored Glass Mountain from here and empty out such a large area of Colored Glass Mountain. However, she knew that if this matter was exposed, Yang Kai would definitely be hunted down by Colored Glass sect. His method of harvesting 1000 illusion colored glass without using the 1000 illusion colored glass art was definitely not something the elders of the sect would be willing to let go of. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.